Al, it has been a tumultuous year, but now we are in the future. We are in the year 2020, and our eyesight is perfect.
No, it's
Take
not.
those glasses off. You don't need them anymore.
No, everything's blurry still.
Oh, dang it. But we're in 2020 now.
2020.
It's amazing. Can you believe last week? Man, can you believe Game of the Year? What a big surprises throughout, man. I can't believe that got Game of the Year.
Wow.
Just amazing. Who could have guessed it?
Me.
I mean, okay, yeah, I guess. I guess so. For clarification's note, we are recording this episode prior to, like, a lot prior to when it would usually go up. Like, this is a month out.
Yep.
Mostly because we had just finished this game and we wanted to talk about it. We didn't want to wait a month to talk about it and forget about everything that happened in it. And it's just, it's easier to talk about things when it's fresh and all that stuff. And like we've talked about, previously, December was very packed. We had a set schedule for everything, so couldn't really jostle it in anywhere else. So we're going to talk about it now. And by now, I mean a month ago when you're hearing this.
Time is weird.
Time is weird. Time is a construct. Welcome to this week's episode of the Seasonal Anime Checkup OVA. This is episode, 156, 7, 8, 160.
Whoa.
And the first episode of 2020.
Starting off strong.
Starting off strong. I am Jared, joined as always by Doc Al and Ladium.
Hello.
This is a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. And we're going to talk about a big old video game today.
Uh-huh.
One that we have been eagerly anticipating.
Uh-huh.
And talked about the previous two episodes in this big old series. Which we talked about. I think we talked about all those last year.
I think so. It makes sense because we didn't get into them until we played Tokyo Xanadu.
We talked about Trails of Cold Steel 1. That was episode 108. This time last year.
Wow. And then 130 is Trails of Cold Steel 2.
We talked about that a little later on because I didn't play 2 until I reviewed the PS4 version.
Mm-hmm.
Or I didn't finish it until I played the PS4 version. So those are the previous episodes. If you need to go catch up on like hundreds of hours of JRPGs.
But also just play Trails of Cold Steel because
they're good.
It's a really good series.
They're pretty good. Yeah. They're all on PS4 now, so like it's a very convenient way to get them.
Yep.
Or if you want to wait for the Switch version of 3 next year, or I guess this year.
This year.
Which that still seems like a weird thing, but I think that we talked about this.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre thing just due to the fact of the publisher switch from 1 and 2 to 3. So I think that's the main cause of this. But yeah, that's a weird thing. I mentioned in my review, don't come to this game as your first game in the series because that's not really going to work.
Yeah, no, it would not work.
I mean, they have those big text dumps if you want to like read through the story of 1 and 2, but like that's not going to give you the full scope of what all has happened and everything. You're not going to have that same emotional attachment if you haven't played through everything. So yeah. Regardless, we are talking about The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3.
Yep.
A video game.
It is a video game. It is a very long JRPG. Well, it wasn't as long for you.
It's still long.
It is still long.
Longer than your average JRPG, I would say.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because like I finished at 60 hours, I think we said. 60-ish. So like that's pretty long.
Do we even want to tell people how long I have logged into it? Do we even want to talk about that?
No.
Okay.
Just know that Alice played this game twice already.
Yeah, I have. Basically, immediately started a new game plus.
Man.
Casually, as you do.
Very casually. So yes, this is the penultimate game in the Cold Steel series, the third game in the series as well, picking up a year and a half after the events of Trails of Cold Steel 2.
And I will say that it's going to be basically impossible for us to give this a spoiler-free review.
If you want a spoiler-free review,
read yours.
Find my review on Crunchyroll and read that, because that's about as spoiler-free as you're going to get.
Yep.
So.
But this isn't going to be spoiler-free at all.
True. Like the only thing I would say is, like, if you've played 1 and 2, just play this. That's a no-brainer.
Play 3. It's amazing.
If you're at all interested in these games and like you've listened to us talk about the first 2 games and you're still interested, like, just go play them.
Yep.
Nothing we're going to say here is like going to disinterest you, hopefully. But also you would just be very confused by what's happening if you haven't played through the first 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Also, you might want to play Trails in the Sky as well. And also, you might want to try and find those Crossbell games and play those as well.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting adventure for us.
Yeah. So let's just we got to dive in immediately, because this is the way it goes. At the end of Trails of Cold Steel 2, we talked about how it was a game that never felt, or it didn't feel like it knew how to end. And one of those reasons was that, like, there are 2 bonus chapters to the end of the game. And one of those is you take control of certain characters from the Crossbell games, and you play as them, and you fight Rain. And that was, like, a little, like, strange, because, like, those Crossbell games, as of this recording, have not been put out or localized in English. They are Japanese only. Mm-hmm. But I will try and find this quote real quick. But yeah, it was a very strange thing, because, like, you don't really know these characters, and it was, like, kind of like, oh, I guess these are people. I guess that's cool. Sure, that is the thing. I'm
sure it's cool for people in Japan.
Oh, totally, because, like, just how interconnected these games already have been already. Like, Prince Olivert is a staple of the Trails in the Sky series.
Yep.
And he shows up in these games. This is a quote from the president of Nihon Falcom, Toshihiro Kondo. He's talking about the Crossbell game specifically. He got a question about, like, hey, are you guys going to do anything? Are you going to localize those? And he says, the thing about both of those games is that they were originally developed for PSP in Japan, and then later on they received what's called the Evolution versions of them in Japan, which I believe those came out on the Vita. But the point is that they're no longer able to be played on modern consoles. So what we want to do as a company, what we're actually starting to prepare for, is to be able to bring both of those games to modern consoles. So right now it's still in the very early stages, and there's not much to be said about it. But as we do this, and as those plans become a little bit more solidified, we would like to absolutely start talks with foreign publishers and things, and get that conversation going to bring these games finally out to fans here in the West. And that was actually a big thing that they talked about with this game, with Cold Steel 3 in particular. Mm-hmm. There was a quote also from Kondo in July of 2017, around the time when this game was coming out in Japan, and he said, foreign sales have reached a point with both the Trails and Ease series where we can't ignore them from a development angle anymore. Ease Memories of this, whatever this word is, for example, sold more outside of Japan than it did inside of Japan, because Vita has been kind of on the decline for a while outside of Japan, and because the PS4 user base is pretty established elsewhere, we began shifting toward PS4 development. So, like, they are very cognizant of the fact that, like, these games are popular outside of Japan.
Good.
So, and the fact that he's like, hey, we're in the talks to port those Crossbell games to modern consoles, and then if we do that, we're absolutely open to putting these out elsewhere. So there's totally a guarantee that these will be playable at some point in the near future, whether that comes around, whether Trails of Cold Steel 4 comes first, or these games come out first, that remains to be seen. But, like, we will be able to play those games at some point. It very much seems likely.
Which is exciting.
Mm-hmm. To get back to our original point, so those characters showing up was very confusing for, English players, if, like, you hadn't really been aware of those Crossbell games or anything. So that was a bit strange. But then you get to the Trails of Cold Steel 3, and basically, they're like, oh, hey, remember these characters from those Crossbell games in 2? Well, now, hey, do you remember these characters from Trails in the Sky? Do you remember these characters from the Crossbell games? Yeah, you probably should know these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this game is very much like, hey, we're implementing the stories and characters from those previous series, and we are mashing them all together into this now. So if you haven't played those games, you probably should. But I think as well, like, they do a decent enough job at kind of like explaining the why they're important, like what their characterizations are, their surrounding stories, and like the characters from those games, and like why they're important, and how they are able to connect into this game specifically. So like, even if you haven't played those games like we hadn't, you're not completely left out of the loop.
Right. You're not going to be super duper lost.
Right. I think that's a very good thing, which I think they're probably going to kind of do the same thing in Trails of Cold Steel 4, because I guess, spoiler for that, if you watch the opening video of that game, it clearly shows the protagonists from the Trails in the Sky series and the Crossbell games.
Correct.
So they are going to show up at some point. So,
which is cool that it's all like coming together, and
totally.
Like I'm excited, and I really hope that we get to play the Crossbell games pretty soon. And I guess Trails in the Sky 3.
That is available.
It is?
It's PC only though.
Which,
because they localized the first 2 games, the PSP games. They put those out here, but they never put out 3 in English on Sony consoles. They only put it out in PC. So that's the only caveat.
I don't have PC.
Yeah. I started playing Trails in the Sky 1 just to like make sure it worked and everything. That game is very slow.
Is it?
Which I think is also just me coming off of playing all of Trails of Cold Steel 3 in high speed mode. So it's just like, oh my god, this is so slow.
I think one of the funniest things about Trails of Cold Steel 3 in the high speed mode is that like when you turn it off after having it on for a while, it's like, oh my god.
Oh, you're just running in molasses.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is it's just like molasses. Everything's so slow. I was like, what is happening?
So you turn it back on after like having not played it, and you're like, we go to move, and you're like, why am I so slow? Oh, I got to turn it back on. Dang it.
Which I played it the first time around with no high speed whatsoever.
I don't know how you did. That's probably why your hour count was so long.
Well, also because I played it twice.
It's true. So yeah, like they have like a lot of like the same kind of accessibility and implementations like that they had in the PS4 ports of Trails of Cold Steel 1 2. So, you know, the high speed mode's back, so you get to just like run around and be very speedy, and everything's very speedy. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Run into everything.
It's
drive terribly.
It's a fun way to play.
It is.
You get to be very fast. Like the only thing like it kind of messes up at times is like sometimes it will cut off characters when they are saying stuff.
Yep.
If like it's a cutscene that like just kind of moves forward in that sort of direction, but like it's nothing too terrible, because like, you know, the text will be on the screen, but
it also leads to some really funny stuff, like Reen's S-Craft.
My blade. Yeah, he'll just like he will not just stand there and say his lines. He'll just be like, "Here's my first line."
My mind is clear. Well, and Sarah's is even funnier, really. Sarah's is just a mess.
It's pretty good.
So those are funny in high speed mode.
Yeah. Or Reen clapping in high speed mode. Just sitting there doing that the entire time.
What a good boy.
Let's talk about some of the new stuff that's in this game.
Let's do it.
It's graphical overhaul.
Yeah.
Because this is, of course, the first time they put the games on PS4. And they were PS4 exclusive. Like, they were not putting them out on Vita or PS3 anymore. Like, it was PS4 and that's it. Of course, like we said, they are porting it to Switch. So we'll see how that works.
How it performs.
Yeah, that's going to be the big issue. Gameplay wise, it's relatively the same. Like, there's a new user interface for battles and everything, but like for the most part, it is the same style that you have been using since Trails in the Sky, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, you have orders now, but like that's really not that different.
Yeah, that's the only like real big new inclusion is the order system, which kind of gives you like a little boost and buff depending on like what you do. So like you have to sacrifice your brave points, which you use for like follow up attacks and rush attacks and all that sort of stuff, which you had been using throughout the other games as well. But you know,
Yeah.
these will give you like, oh, you know, for a certain amount of turns you will get half damage reduction because you're in defense mode, or like you'll be in heal mode and you'll get a little healing buff, or you're in attack mode so your attacks are better and all that sort of stuff. So it's like those kinds of things
Speed
essentially.
mode.
Um, one of the characters can switch weapon types on the fly, going from like a shooting type character to a melee type character, which is an interesting little caveat.
Although she was
Um,
always the shooter for me.
really, I had her melee all the time.
No, because she could hit multiple people. And
Ah,
because I set her up as like a status effect character that like
that
she,
makes sense.
100% of the time, if they were not immune, she would status effect them. So the more of them that I hit, they would get status effects. It was fantastic.
This says as well like there's new like enhancements to like, you know, bosses will buff themselves up every now and then. They'll like gain HP. They'll be like ready to attack better and have stronger. It's kind of like if you were playing an MMO and they get enraged, similar to that kind of mechanic.
Oh, and the break
Um,
gauge is new.
Break gauge is new. Um, and the mech fights are a little bit different.
Are they?
A little bit. I think because like you have like more group fights this time.
Oh, yeah. Well, group fighting is different, but
Yeah.
like for the most part, it's still mostly the same.
But yeah, like we're saying, it's a lot of kind of like subtle improvements. It's not like we are completely replacing this entire battle system with this new one. It's like now we're gonna, you know, keep, you know, implementing on what we've already done, and just, you know, here's the same stuff basically, but a little bit better. Don't break or don't change what's not broken.
Yep.
That sort of thing. Um, there are new mini games, and by new mini games, there are improved upon mini games. Essentially, fishing has been overhauled.
Yes, it has.
You are the fishing expert, so I would like you to
Talk about
lead us
fishing.
through fishing.
Okay, so fishing in the other games was you would like throw out the line and then you like, randomly smash buttons in time to catch the fish. So it's kind of rhythm game ish. It was fine. And then now it is a system where you have to do kind of like a Shadow Hearts like circle hit. I don't know what those are called.
It's just like a timing thing where like you have there's a, like you said, there's a circle gauge, and on one side there are 3 different bars, and depending on which bar you get, like you have a higher chance of getting a better fish.
Correct. It's very Shadow Hearts esque. So once you hit a color, if you hit a color, then that decides how big of a fish you're gonna get, and then you have to essentially just like press the circle button repeatedly. But the fish can also get mad and pull on your rod. Whoops. And if you don't pay attention to like what your tension is and everything, you will lose that fish when it gets mad. So you have to make sure that you're not letting it get too far, but you like don't let it get too close. There's like a happy medium on there. But then eventually you reel in the fish. But there's also you can put enhancements on your fishing rod. You can buy them from stores throughout. So you can get like stronger lines or better reels, and then by doing that, it makes it a lot easier to fish.
Was that a thing that you could do in the previous game, like upgrading or like buying upgrades for your rod and everything?
You could just buy new rods.
Okay.
But you couldn't like upgrade this one. Instead of buying new rods, you have the same rod, you just buy upgrades for it.
Okay.
But it does make fishing quite a bit easier as you upgrade the rod. And I did a lot of fishing. I think we said I had like 100 something fish caught. Does that sound right?
That sounds about right. I'll believe it.
I think it was over 100 fish. I really like fishing in games. I don't know why, because I don't like fishing in real life. But like anytime a game's like, hey, you can fish, I'm like, yeah, I can. But Cold Steel, I really, really enjoy fishing. I think it's very, very fun. Although I am very mad they put 2 sharks as things that you can catch.
It's not nice.
It's not nice. I was not expecting that, and I caught one. I'm like, whoa,
Get out of here. Catch
like,
and release.
like one of them is a ghost one, but still, like, I don't want it. It can go away.
Too spooky.
So I caught the one that was required on there, and then just like left.
Like, I'm out. I'm good.
Like if I ever caught a shark at the fishing spots, I was like, nope, never fishing there again. We're good. So yeah, fishing is fun. Unless you're Jared.
Fishing's bad.
Fishing's not bad.
I hate it. Hated it.
It's not bad.
I was terrible at it, and I just like anytime I tried, like I just failed horribly, and I was just like, this.
Oh, did you
Done.
upgrade the rod?
I think I had like 1 or 2 upgrades, but I was just like, I'm done.
Oh.
I'm not buying these upgrades, even though I had money I could have, but
You should
like,
have.
I'm
It
done
makes
with
it
fishing.
so much easier.
Done.
Also, I caught a giant fish.
You did
It's like-
catch a giant fish.
It's like bigger than the screen. I don't know how Reen even picked it up with one arm.
He's
Other
very
than-
he's got a strong arm.
Well, I was gonna say, because he's shredded. Like all the dudes are shredded and topless a lot in this game, and I'm like,
It's true.
all right, cool. I guess you're just super, super cut now. Which I mean, I guess he is like kind of been in the military for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So like,
And he's gone to a military school, so
yeah, like but he's shredded, and he was not shredded in the last 2 games at all. Now he is.
it's all that speedy motion he goes through. He's
Speedy motion and probably, weightlifting giant fish.
like, that's how he works out.
Hmm.
Runs very fast, lifts giant fish.
What a workout routine.
It's true.
Takes lots of baths.
Yep, that too.
So yeah, I really like fishing. You did not like fishing, but then it is the opposite case for the new card game.
There is a new card game. They have replaced Blade, which let's talk about Blade. It sucked. All right, that's all we need to say.
I liked Blade.
It's bad.
I liked it. I played it a lot.
I went back and played it on Trails of Cold Steel 1. It's bad. Like
I
there is
liked it.
no strategy to that game. It is just placing cards down, hoping that you have the right kind of cards in your hand, and just making sure that you have the right you have a number that's higher than theirs, and that's it. And hoping you don't get hit with like a bolt or a mirror. It's bland. It's boring. There is no strategy to it. It sucks.
There can be strategy.
No.
Especially like you play it in Xanadu. And Xanadu, if you're not thinking smart about how you're
I
playing
honestly do not remember it in Xanadu at all.
it's in the arcade because I played it a lot there too. But if you like make one tiny mistake in that one, you're boned. You will lose. And I liked Blade. I thought it was a lot of fun. I played it quite a bit.
But now it's gone. It has been swept up by the new hot hit sensation of collectible card games, and that's Vantage Masters.
It's a children's card game.
It is a children's card game. What if you took Magic the Gathering and put it in Trails of Cold Steel?
Reen gets confused.
That's
like,
basically what you have here.
He's like, I play Blade. Is that the same thing?
It's like, no, give it the times, Grandpa. He should have been like, oh, I play Blade. Isn't that the same thing? And then the little kids are like, okay, boomer.
Mm.
So basically this is completely overhauled. It's not Blade in the slightest. It is, like we said, it's basically Magic the Gathering in a way. But like Magic doesn't have like a master card system, so it's a little bit different. It's kind of, I guess, more in the line of Hearthstone. So you have your own deck. There's a deck creation system, so you can create your own decks and everything. You can make it sort of like fitted towards a single element if you wanted. all that sort of things. There are master cards, which your master cards are, what your starting HP is and everything. They will also have, they'll tell you how much mana you will start with, how much attacks they will start with, and then some of them will have specific little skills that you can do. Like, for the most part, we use the fighter card, which starts you off at 30 health and I think 3 attack, and it's 2 mana to start with. But you can use 3 mana that you bank, because you keep banking mana each turn and everything. That's just how card games work usually. And that'll like bump up everyone on your everyone that you have like cast out, their attack power will go up by 1. So like they'll have like abilities like that and everything. And essentially, this is a collectible card game that you play against other folks that you run across, and you beat them, and you get more cards and everything. And that is the nature of the beast. So, you start off with your specific mana. You'll play cards, and you have to be like, oh, I have 1 mana, or I have 2 mana, so I need to play these 2 1 mana cards. They'll be pretty weak. They'll be like 1/1s and all that sort of stuff. So you're not going to be like killing things on turn 1 specifically, but you just you go back and forth, and you keep going until one player's MasterCard HP is at 0, and then that is the person who wins. There are creature cards, like we talked about. Those are the ones that are going to have, you're going to be using the most, because, they'll have attacks and defense and everything. They'll also have skills and abilities. There are spell cards, which are, they'll cost a few mana here and there, but they'll do specific things. Like, there's some that are like, oh, you play this card, it'll bump up your creature's attack power. If it's a specific element, it'll give it another boost. You can do this amount of damage to a card. You can seal this card. You could heal one of your cards with these kind of spells, that sort of thing. Like I just really got into this in a way that I wasn't expecting in the slightest. Like I played the first game and I was like, this is fun. This is really good. And I was like, I kept going on towards everyone, be like, oh, when do I get to play a children's card game again? Kept looking out for that icon, and like, oh, I get to play this person. I get to play this person. And then, of course, I always whoop that ass.
Except for when you lost and then had to redo it.
And then I whooped that in a children's card game. I was the best children's card game player in the history.
It's true. You beat
Vantage
everybody.
Masters. I beat them all. I whooped all their ass.
Mm-hmm.
Had all the cards. I made it rain after I won the final game. I was like, here, Kurt Vandersma, I'm going to make my cards rain on you.
God.
I'm the children's card game master. Those are the 2 big new mini games that have been overhauled and everything. One's good, one is not as fun. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, we have opposite opinions on which one is the case, but you're not wrong that one is good and the other one's not as good.
So there you go. I think that's kind of like the big hitters in terms of like new stuff in this game. The other new stuff is basically just story.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of new story. There's a lot of new characters to talk about. So now we're in like super duper spoiler mode. So there's that. Like we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, this takes place a year and a half after the events of Trails of Cold Steel 2. So some things have happened in between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
Reen is older. He looks older. He is no longer a child.
He does look older. He is now a teacher.
He's now a teacher. There is they have made a Thor's branch campus, a subsidiary of the main campus now. And they've sent, and Reen's basically like, I'll go teach there. Yay.
Yay. It's basically like a suburb of Heimdall.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Leaves.
There's some leaves there.
God. Reen's been through a lot in the year and a half, but now he's going to go be a teacher. He's going to go pay it forward.
It is a very... the campus itself is pretty big. Like, it's about the same size as the main branch campus, but, like, there's not a lot of people there.
No.
The staff itself is, like, at the beginning, 5 people.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe, like, 6 if you count the weird professor.
Blech.
The jerk professor shows up, and he's also working here. But the main like kind of like faculty members is General Le Guin from the second game is the principal
Mm-hmm.
of the school.
Which is wild.
Major Michael is a member of the Railway Military Police, and he's like kind of like the second in command here, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
There is Reen, who is the teacher of the new Class 7,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially another version of Class 7, where they're kind
Special
of going to be
operations.
doing the same sort of things. Toa is the teacher of military finance.
My girl.
She has gone to become a teacher, and from the Crossbell games, one Mr. Randy Orlando.
Randy Orlando.
He is teaching combat tactics.
I love that when they introduce him, he is Randolph Orlando.
And then immediately he's Randy Orlando.
Randy Orlando. And like every time he showed up, I'm basically like, Randy Orlando. Which for the record is a lot.
It's true. He shows up a lot.
Mm-hmm. I love him. He's great.
So those are the big faculty members, and also pretty much the main workers of the school.
Yeah,
that's
eventually you get what's it, Celestin?
Yeah, basically people that you went to school with previously start to show up and begin to work some of like the minor jobs around the school. But the main kind of faculty is essentially those 5.
Yeah, those dudes don't teach,
Mhm.
but these guys teach. Reen teaches. Toa teaches. Randy Orlando teaches.
Randy Orlando teaches.
The
Principal teaches art.
Art for some reason. I never figured out what Major Michael teaches.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just there.
Maybe math?
Yeah, that might be right.
Because he had some mathy stuff going on at one point. Which you'd think that would kind of show up in military finance, but like, nope. That's all regular finance stuff.
They all kind of like have like they have they're split up into different classes, but then like they take all like their gen ed stuff together.
Right. Also, can we talk about the fact that Reen is a history teacher? I'm so happy.
And he's wearing fake glasses to try and throw people off the trail that he's him. And no one buys it.
No one buys it, but also his name is Reen Schwarzer. Like, buddy, everybody knows who you are unless you like adopt a fake name. Like everybody's gonna know. But
it's me, Bream Dwarzer.
But also like you're like a giant war hero and all that jazz.
Like he comes out in his fake glasses and like all these girls like, oh, it's the Asher Chevalier. And he's like, oh god, my glasses didn't work.
Well, then one of his students, Kurt's like, those are dumb. You should take them off. They look bad.
He's like, oh, okay.
I was like, wow, Kurt, that's savage. Just tell your teacher he looks bad in his glasses, which, for the record, I don't think he looks bad in his glasses. I think he should keep the glasses.
He looks like a nerd.
He is a nerd.
That's true.
But yeah, I was stoked that he became the history teacher. And I'm like, yeah. Says the former history teacher.
The history major.
I majored in history a lot.
The history doctorate.
Yeah, the history doctorate.
So yeah, there's your kind of brief introduction to the new Thor's Branch Academy.
They have blue uniforms.
They do have blue uniforms. So you get your new Class 7, and initially it is 3 people in your class.
Yep.
You have Yuna, who is a former member of the Crossbell Police Academy, and formerly a person who lived in Crossbell, so she is well aware of all the stuff that happened there.
She's a Crossbellian.
Yes. You have Kurt Vander.
Kurt Vander!
He is the son of the Vanders, who you've met in the previous Trails games.
Yeah, he's the second son, and also his brother is Mueller. And like you always hear about the Vander style, and he will tell you about the Vander style.
He will tell you about the Vander style. And then finally, the third member is Altina, who was the Black Rabbit in Trails of Cold Steel 2, one of the main antagonists, and also the person you see working with Reen in the one of the bonus chapters at the end of Trails of Cold Steel 2, when you're the Crossbell folks. And so she is there.
Is a model number after Milliam.
Yes. She's from the Black Workshop.
Yep.
So that's your new Class 7. You go through a dungeon immediately because that's how Class 7s operate.
Which it's hilarious because Reen's like, oh God, watch the floor. And nobody listens. And then the same thing happens where like Kurt is just like face first in some boobies.
Like Yuna just lands on him and he's like, ah!
Well, and the funny thing is that like Kurt Vander is like one of the nicest boys. I know I said he was savage earlier, but like when Yuna lands on him and like just gets face full of boob,
she's very embarrassed and he's just like not flustered.
but also like he's like, you know, I know this is weird, but like also please get off me because I'm having a hard time breathing. And it was really funny to me that he's just like, I can't breathe. Can you please remove yourself from me? And he even like, he's so adorable. And she's like, this is terrible. He's like, if it makes you feel any better, you can hit me. And I'm like, Kurt Vander, what are you doing? And he does get hit. And Reen's over there like, tee-hee. This brings back memories.
At least those two kind of like don't stay awkward together.
Fast.
Yeah, they worked out very fast.
Yeah. Yeah, she apologizes really quickly for it, but it's just funny. Reen's over there like, oh, some things never change. While Kurt Vander's over there being the good boy.
He's a good boy.
I guess Reen was also a good boy about it, but he didn't say like, hey, I can't breathe. Please get off me.
It's true.
He's just like, my hands are out. I'm not touching anything.
So you go through a dungeon made by the weird professor man who made
Schmidt.
the major sword for Valimar. He is also joined by a new member of the school as well as Tita. She is from the Trails in the Sky games. They lead you through a dungeon and you fight a magic knight. And then you beat it. And then Reen's like, hey, do you guys want to be in Class 7? You got to tell me why. And they're like, yeah, I guess. Okay. And he's like, yay, good job.
Which is funny because originally Altina's like, I have to be here. And he's like, no. You have to decide for yourself whether or not you want to be here. And she's like, I don't know how to make my own choices. What do I do?
And then he's like, okay, we'll just figure it out along the way. Also, I like how like he's like, hey, you know, if you don't want to join, no, I'll just talk to the higher ups. We'll get you transferred to a different class and everything. And then like once like everyone accepts and everything, it pans out to like the other faculty members.
It's Major Michael.
It's Major Michael is like, you can't change classes. That's not a thing you can do. And Le Guin's like, you know, if he would have asked, I would have let him do it. Whatever. Which
is very Le Guin thing to do.
It's very.
But yeah, it's funny. He's like, you can't do that. And I was like, but what if you did that? It's quite funny.
The dichotomy of the higher ups of the branch campus is Major Michael being like the stern one, like, this is how we're gonna do things. It's this way. There's no other way we can do it. And then Le Guin just like walks in, just like, hey, what's up, everybody? Let's do all these things in different ways. Whoa!
Major Michael's over there like, oh God. Why did I take this job?
Why am I here?
Let me run into you in the hallway a lot.
Oh my God, stop running into me in the hallways, Major Michael. I'm just reading my text messages.
Both of us had a situation where we were reading Reen's text messages. And Major Michael, like once we closed the phone, Major Michael's just like standing next to us like, what are you doing? Like,
reading.
Leave me alone,
there's enough
Major
room
Michael.
in the hallway you could walk around me.
It's made even weirder that we both played in like his like unspeakable costume from the other games. So Major Michael's just like standing next to this like open no shirt Reen who's reading his text messages in the halls.
It's pretty good.
God. So yeah, we have a Class 7 again.
We do. New Class 7, Class 7 2.0. The noobs.
The noobs are our new.
Also, we're gonna get new members, but they will come later.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about them yet.
Because the prologue basically spoils that.
Yeah.
Because it does the thing that like the other games do, where it's like, here's the thing that's gonna happen later on.
When will you get to it? Who knows? But
Probably chapter 3.
That's how it usually works.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that they're going to join the class eventually, and like you get kind of a quick introduction to them, especially because like they come and talk to Reen after class one day. They're like, "Hey, we just want to introduce ourselves," and Ash is like, "Hey, you suck. Just want to let you know."
He's like, oh, okay.
And Music's like,
Thanks.
"I kind of want to bone you like a lot." And he's like,
Let me hop on that.
basically, and he's like, "Please,
excuse me.
please keep 5 feet between me and you at all times."
God, she would take that, be like, oh, you got 5 feet down there or something. He's
Oh
like,
my
no.
God. Muse is like the biggest perv I've ever seen. God. And like the entire time, anytime she'd show up, I'm like, no, go away. What do you want to say to Reed? Stop sexually harassing your teacher. She never quit.
No.
Nope, she kept sexually harassing her teacher.
All the way through.
Mm-hmm. Poor Reen.
Everyone's just like, no, please stop.
Well, and he even tried. Yeah, I mean, like, Yuna's done. She's just constantly like, why are you like this? And Reen's like constantly trying to be very, very kind to her, but also being like, no, back off. Not interested. I'm going to lose my job if people think you're being serious. So that's a thing. But yeah, when they first introduce themselves, you're like, huh, I've seen you guys before in the prologue. I know what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, they're in military finance and combat tactics.
It's true.
So like we have the same kind of format of like we have some free days and then we have like field exercises.
It's very similar to the structure of the first game.
Yes. And there's like situations going on around the country. The students need to go check it out. They have a big armored train for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Choo choo.
Which helps them conveniently carry around mechs.
Yep. Nice. They have this delightful little guy with like a Scottish accent named Pablo who loves trains.
He does.
He loves trains so much. He even makes model trains. But yeah, so that's how we do a lot of this is like we have the same like you have some free time, you get to use bonding points and hang out with people, and then once that's done, you're gonna like instead of having like the
old schoolhouse, you have the new schoolhouse.
Yeah, and you don't have the class fights anymore. You just have the mech fights.
Yeah,
instead.
you train like all the
students.
students. You train all the students using the mech, so like they are fully comfortable using them in combat in case that's a thing that needs to happen. And basically, it's a lot of like, hey, what kind of mech do you want to use? How's that gonna like what it fits your fighting style the best? And that's something that they kind of figure out over the course of the game. But yeah, that's the basic style before you head off onto your field exercises. The first field exercise, you go somewhere. I don't remember where it is.
One of them is called Parm, and that's
Parmesan.
Parmesan. That is a place where Kurt Vander lived for a while.
Right. Yes.
I don't remember the other town's name, but it's nearby.
Mm-hmm. It's a fancy place.
Yeah. And so you kind of get like the royal tour by Kurt Vander, who's like
the dude who is running that area is Patrick's dad.
High Arms.
Yes. Who Patrick as well is like full blown baby face now. He and Reen are best buds, and it's really good. Like
I love it.
There's a scene like in the prologue where like Reen is traveling to Leafs for the first time and Patrick's with him, and like kind of like they're just talking and he's like kind of like making sure like Reen's like all right and everything and up to speed with everything, and like they have like this good moment together. It's like, you know, I'm glad you were here. I'm glad, you know, you have my back and everything. It's like, this is great.
It made me so happy. Like, I'm really, really glad that they like got together and that Patrick's had his He's had a good character arc,
Mhm.
really. And it's sane arc, by the way.
Okay. Also, like anytime he's around like other members of Class 7, they just dunk on him for being an asshole in the other
Yeah,
games.
they're like, yeah, dude, you sucked. And he's like, oh yeah, I
He's
know.
like, please stop. I don't want to remember that.
He's like, everything's fine now. We're
I
good
was very
now.
mature.
Yeah, and
Also, he still wants to get Elise.
he does want to
And
get
Reed's like,
Elise.
what do you think about that?
He's like, so you think you're good enough for my sister, huh? Nobody's good enough for my sister. But yeah, he's still trying to get with Elise, which I don't know if you noticed, but he does eventually get to dance with her.
He does.
So Patrick got at least something. But he is a much better boy now, and he has learned from his mistakes, and it's very clear that he's learned from his mistakes. Like he knows that he was a jerk and like owns up to it, which is great because you don't always get that when you get like redemption arcs.
Totally.
But like his is good. I'm glad they're bros.
So yeah, you go around this new area, and you do your field exercise stuff, which is like going around helping people in the area, fighting monsters. You learn that like there's these old archaisms that are running amok, and you're like, well, that's bad. These are things that were being sent out during the Civil War. And you meet some old dude who's like, yeah, I've seen these too. They're real messed up. You should be careful. And then like you go past like where he was, and like there's just a pile of them. And you're like, excuse me?
Who is this guy?
Who is this man? You
also meet this redheaded lady who's talking to you about a kitten at one point. And everybody's like, wow, she's dressed weird. That's bizarre, huh? Yeah, guess we'll never see her again.
You get through your first day of exercises, and then oh no, there's people attacking the train. And it is folks from Ouroboros.
One of them being that redheaded lady that I just mentioned that we were never going to see again.
Randy Orlando's cousin.
She calls him Dolphy.
She does.
Dolphy. He's like, I don't like her.
She is joined by Duvalet.
Duvalet.
I just wanted to say it again because I messed up. So yeah, they're here to mess stuff up because they're like, hello, we're here again. We just wanted to remind you guys that we exist. And then some friends show up.
One thing I do want to say is that there is a moment with Duvalet and what is her name? Shirley. God. Shirley and Duvalet that really upset me because it was really awkward and terrible. And it's very like Japanese game tropey and like that happens.
Right.
But I was just like, why is this happening? But yeah, they're in there attacking the train, and then yeah, your friends come, and
which you had seen previously in the day that they had shown up. So you see Elliot, he's doing a performance. You're like, oh, hey, fancy meeting you here. And then like you go to Kurt's old training house, and they're like, oh, we got a new teacher and everything. And then you go back later, and it's like, oh, this is Laura.
Yep.
Who else? Oh, and then at the trains, Fee shows up. Who he hadn't seen previously.
And then in St. Arc in the cathedral, you see that someone is playing music for the people.
It's me. I'm playing music for the people.
No, it's Elliot with his side ponytail.
So they show up and help you fight off Shirley and Duvalet. And then you're like, well, that's messed up. Why are they here? You regroup the next day and basically tell the new Class 7 to off, and you're going to go hang out with your friends.
Basically. And they're like, grrr.
What do you mean we can't go? And he's like, no, you can't come. It's not safe. And they're like, I'm going to go brood.
Well, one thing that he does that I understand why he did it, but also it was sad to see Kurt Vander get hurt.
He just like he talks down Kurt Vander bad.
Yeah,
he's just like, you're you are not ready for this. Go sit in the hall.
Go sit in the corner and think about what you did.
Yeah.
Because Kurt's like, what? Do you not like think that I'm reliable or something like that? He's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
Kurt's
like, oh.
And he basically does that and just like falls on his face like George Michael. And then Yuna's like, just when I was starting to like you. Because, by the way, Yuna doesn't like Reen at all. But yeah, she like storms off and is like, Kurt Vander, we're gonna show him.
She's like, him, them. We're gonna go find them, trail them, and we're gonna help them no matter what.
Yep. So Kurt Vander is real bummed because he's like, oh, I'm trying really hard with my swordsmanship.
Yeah, he's got told I was
He's so sad.
He is. And then Altina's there and just like, I don't understand emotions, guys, but I'll help you know with what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, I'm here.
So you go around investigating stuff, and then eventually you find Ouroboros again. They're just hanging out in the woods. You also learn about. Is this where you learn about? Yeah, you learn about like this big tragedy that had been covered up by the government and everything. That was like, the Erebonian government committing genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, it was a landslide.
Yep, landslide.
And it's like, nope. Which is interesting because like you go there, and Shirley and Duvally are there, right?
Yep.
And like you go to pay respects, and they're like, "Are you guys here too? All right, go ahead." Like there's just like this weird, interesting little brief moment where like they're not gonna like fight each other, but like you're like, "Hey, we kind of have the same idea here. Let's this is kind of a place where we shouldn't fight each other. And if we go fight each other, we'll do it elsewhere.
We'll meet out back later," which they basically do. But yeah, you find out that like Hamel, like everyone was massacred, that it was done in order to like start the 100 Days War.
Mm-hmm.
And that 2 people survived, which we know who those 2 people are, because they're in other Legend of Heroes games.
It's me and you.
Yeah, totally us. And like one of the sad parts about this, and there are lots of sad parts, but like there's one part where you first get to the town and you have to like go and check out all the shiny spots, and like some of them are like children's toys.
Mm-hmm.
And they're thinking about like how old that they would potentially be at that point. One thing that I've still not figured out about this, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck it's about, is that Reen has a flashback in this one. And he's like, no, I've never been here. I don't know what that's about. And I still haven't figured out why he has that flashback there.
Maybe we'll find out in the next game.
Maybe. Like I thought maybe it was just because like his flashback involved fire and like this one had fire in it. And it may just be a situation of like similar circumstances. I don't know.
What if there was a 4th survivor?
Oh my God. Jared, spoilers. There's supposed to be 2 survivors.
Well, him and himself. What if Reen's not fully Reen?
I mean, that's not completely incorrect. But...
Not in the way that the game tells you.
Oh. So yeah, you find out all about Hamel and how it's like this big cover up and people suck. So they meet Duvally and Shirley out back by the dumpsters, and they're gonna go fight. And I say that they're actually out in the woods, but it was funnier my way. And so you have to fight them in some archaisms, or like I think some archaisms and like some of those weird jaguar things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you win that, which you should, they're like, oh man, we need backup, and like Shirley's dude's gonna come and help, and
the rest of Duvally's crew show up.
The rest of the Stallritter, are they the Stallritter?
I thought is the lady in charge of the Stallritter?
Well,
are they as a group the Stallritter?
They're as a group, but they're called the Stallritter.
Okay, I feel like there's too many names, too many group names.
So those 2 show up, and then Shirley's like right hand man, and they're like, we don't want to do this, and then here come the kiddos storming in, which they are joined by Ash and a mech.
Mm-hmm. Because Ash has just been like kind of hiding in the background and just like hey guys, can I come with? I want to tell Reen to off too. They're like, sure, come on.
So he shows up in a mech. Kurt Vander and Altina and Yuna all like
Also show
basically
up.
they throw everybody off their game. So like, oh, we're not gonna fight this time. And then
You got to fight a big mech.
fight a big mech. They're like, hey, how about you fight this guy because it's ready.
They're like, oh, this thing's big.
Yeah, we don't like this. This is not fun. So Reen calls on his good buddy Valimar, who apparently talks more human now, and that
Won't
is
smooch him.
He won't give us smooches. And it's significant that he speaks normally now, but he calls on Valimar, and Ash gets knocked out with his mech, and Kurt Vander's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get in that mech and I'm gonna fight. So he like
Reen's like, that's probably not a good idea. And he's like, no, I will do it anyways.
So he like tags Ash out and he's like, let me in that mech. And then they fight and they destroy the thing, sort of. But they don't actually destroy it because guess who does destroy it? All right, Fee's dad's here.
Mm-hmm. So Zephyr shows up and they're like, oh, hey, by the way, our leader's back. And everyone's like, excuse me? He is kind of dead.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, what's up, everyone? Hello, I'm here. Hello,
also,
Fee.
I have
Hello.
a divine knight.
Hello, look at my divine knight. It's pretty cool. It's invisible.
And then he destroys the thing.
And then they all just leave, and everyone's just like, what just happened?
Poor Fee.
That dude was dead.
Yeah, super dead.
He's kind of here. What?
He's no longer super dead. Why is his divine knight see-through?
Good questions. And then new class 7's like, hey, f***head, you glad you didn't take us now? And then Reen's just like, I guess you were right.
He does like scold them a bit because like, you disobeyed my orders, but also you kicked, so I'm kind of proud of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cute that he did that. But and there are just jokes throughout this game of people are like, man, shoes on the other foot now, Reen. And they're always having to give like the happy speeches like, oh man, Reen's on the other side of that now. It's pretty fantastic. But yeah, so then we're through with our first field exercise and things are a little weird.
Does the members of Ouroboros here mention them wanting to take back their plan here?
Not yet. They're just talking about how they needed to
They're doing tests.
They're doing tests.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that leads. Oh God, I'm just knocking things over.
Oh no.
Chapter 2. Where you got more field exercises and all that bullshit. You got more free time and hanging out and doing stuff. But this time you're heading to Crossbell.
Yep.
The newly annexed Crossbell, which is now a part of Erebbonia.
Mm-hmm.
Where
with
people
Rufus
are like,
as the head.
Yeah, that face.
Yeah, God, he sucks. Yeah, Rufus is if you don't remember, Eustace's older brother, and he sucks, and he's an Ironblood, and also now he's the Governor General of Crossbell.
Mm-hmm.
Yay! So there's gonna be like this big inspection happening in Crossbell.
There's a lot of like big heads of people are showing up there. So
one thing that we forgot to mention is that before you go to Crossbell, you go drinking with Randy Orlando.
Yeah, you do. You get drunk.
You get drunk with Randy Orlando, and he's like, "Reen, will you?" He says Schwarzer. He's like, "Schwarzer, will you call me Randy? I'll call you Reen." And they're like, "Yeah, all right, I'm into this." So then they start calling each other by their first names, but like they get drunk, and then Machias calls. He's like, "Are you drunk?"
They're like, no.
He's like, I get drunk too. It's fine.
No.
So based on the fact that Machias calls, you're like, all right, well, he's probably got to show up at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And you also get a request from the Reinford company.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, I wonder who else might show up.
Also, Milliam shows up.
Yeah, that's true.
She shows up to Leaves specifically.
Leaves. Mm-hmm.
So you get to hang out with her, and you have her and Altina go through a dungeon thing together, and Altina's like, "I guess I'll show up with you. I guess."
And then Lecter calls at the end. He's like, "So, have you seen this like small energetic girl? Because I'm kind of missing her. I don't know where she went."
You're like, "Oh, I
He-
kind of,
he-
I have her.
She's with me. I'll bring
We
her
did
back
some
now."
fighting."
Yeah.
Um, Lecter is he's also an
Shady.
Ironblood, very shady.
Very shady.
You don't know really what his main goal is, except that he's with the Ironbloods and just he's like one of the big higher ups in the intelligence agency,
They
and
call him
works with
Scarecrow.
Milliam and also
Claire.
So like he's real weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I haven't figured him out yet.
he definitely feels like someone who is playing like 3 different hands at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And trying not to tell anyone that he's playing 3 different hands. Like, "Oh, I'm just playing one hand, guys. Totally normal." Anyways, I'm over here playing this one here. Oh, I'm over here playing this one too.
Yeah, I have not figured out what Lecter's about yet.
Because there is definitely like throughout the entire game, we were like, "This dude's shady." But how shady? Where does he fit into everything? And then there are certain scenes at the end of the game where we're like,
Yep.
Again, where do you fit into all this?
Yep.
So.
For the record, I was trying to figure out like what his last name was because I couldn't remember. So I just went to the wiki page for him.
Arendelle.
Let me read you Lecter's likes. They are toying around.
Okay.
Fishing.
Okay.
Gambling.
Okay.
And ukulele.
What a weirdo.
Right? Like, what? All right.
Okay, but how many of those are true?
Only the ukulele.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yep. So yeah, you're in Crossbell. Yuna is like,
she's very excited, but also just like, I'm trying not to show it.
She's also just very like she wants people to be impressed by Crossbell.
Mm-hmm.
She really, really wants people to be impressed. And like at one point, Kurt like says something like, "Oh, you know, like this is like this in this town." And she's like, "Can you please just like be excited for once? Like that'd be cool, buddy."
But she's also kind of like on edge and kind of uneasy because considering what's happened in Crossbell over the past like year and a half. So it's this weird mix of all of that.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, there's the big inspection gonna happen, and so there's like a lot of people that are bigwigs coming into town. Is this? I think this is where Altina like basically calls Reen a perv at one point, and so everyone's like, Reen?
I think so, yeah.
And he's like, "No, she's joking. She is joking." And like this like flavor text afterwards when everything goes black and you're moving on, it's like she does admit that she embellished things. Yeah. She's like, Yuna's like, "Do we need to keep you away from a certain instructor?"
He's like, "No,
I'm not like that." So yeah, you get all your quests from
Rufus.
And he's shady always.
Oh, definitely.
You get to like go on a tour. You get to meet Yuna's family and her twin siblings that are much younger than her and her mother. And then eventually you go to the Rhineford Company and you meet Tio.
Tio Tot.
I love the name Tio Tot. And she's adorable.
Tio is from the Crossbell games. She was a member of the special support section.
I forget which. There's like 3 big like tech companies.
There is Rhineford, Epstein, and then the other one.
The ZCF or whatever.
Sure.
I think that's the one that Tito is involved with. But Tio is with Epstein, I believe. But she's working with Rhineford at the moment. Right. It's complicated. But anyway, she's like,
ZCF.
Hey, ZCF.
Is that what it says? Zeiss Central Factory.
I don't remember if I said that or not, but
You
it
said
was
Z something, so.
cool. Close enough. Um, and so she's like, "Hey guys, I kind of need your help. Will you go with me into like the underground areas? That'd be cool." Um, and if you played 2, which I hope you did if you are listening to this podcast, but you would recognize these underground tunnels
Mm-hmm.
because they are just the same tunnels. I mean, different layout, but the same format
Style of tunnels, yeah.
as the weird bonus episode in Crossbell.
Mm-hmm.
And Reed even comments like, "Oh, hey, I've been in these before." So you're gonna go in there and check things out, see what's going on, try and let Teotot do her scans.
Mm-hmm.
Get to have her in your party if you'd like. So then when you get to the end of that area, surprise, there's a magic knight. Oh no! You fight the heavy ruby.
Gumbo Ruby.
Then once the heavy ruby dies, another one appears.
You're
But
like, oh,
then
crud.
it is attacked by 2 people. One with a bow and the other one with chain, like weird wiry things.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder who these 2 people could be.
No idea. I've never seen them in my life.
I love that Yuna's like, "Oh, she's beautiful." Like while Lisa's just like ripping the shit out of this thing with her bow. So yeah, we have Sharon and Elisa save the day. Yay. Mm-hmm. And then Elisa just like shoves her face into Reen and hugs him for a good while, and everyone's like,
whoa. Which is funny because like every time someone new comes up to Reen, they're like, how do you, is this a person in class 7 or just someone else that you just happen to know?
Yeah, like they're always like, why do you know people and why are they all important people? But this one, they're like, this is clearly not, like, this is weird, right? They've been hugging for like 5 minutes. Like, this is okay. And like they mentioned it several times throughout the game, but and then Sharon just constantly just like roasting them about it. So that's funny, but we have these people now.
Before all that though, like you meet Machias at one point. He's like, "Hello, I'm here. I'm doing an inspection. Thanky. Nice to see you. We'll probably meet up later. Okay, bye."
I have dumb hair.
I look like I'm 10 years older.
He does. Everybody else looks normal, and then he's just like ancient for some reason. I say ancient as if he's like not the same age as me if he would be 10 years older. But you know, whatevs. He looks a lot older than everybody else for some weird reason.
You go hang out with Elisa and Sharon for a while. You get to ride a motorcycle. Sharon gives you her deep-seated backstory and basically acts like she's about to die.
Yeah, she sends up so many death flags here.
She tells you that she was the one who killed Elisa's dad.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, no.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
But she's like, don't tell Elisa. You can't tell her. She'll find out eventually, but don't tell her.
That'd be very
And so we have like the inspection crew show up at one point. And they realize one that like the major leader of Crossbell is not there, but not Rufus, but like the regular leader that they've had forever. They're like, oh, that's weird that he's not here. But guess who's here? Oliver and Alphen, and also Chairman Arena from the Ryanford Company, and also Machias's dad.
Before that though.
Yeah.
Do we go in the forest and meet other characters?
Do we? Yeah, I guess we do. Wait, what forest?
Or I guess
that was in the last area. Because that was at Parm.
No.
Yeah, the Isthmus Forest was at Parm.
No, not that.
Oh, okay.
It's not the forest, I guess, but it's like another like wooded area. It's past the fishing house.
Oh, right. Okay, I thought you were talking about the one where you met the girl who.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay, because that was earlier.
So again, another central plot point of this is that Reen's his Super Saiyan powers. Yeah, Super Saiyan powers. Are kind of out of control after an incident during
Northumbria.
Yeah, during the year and a half that was in between. So like he doesn't have a good control on them anymore. And
Mhm.
like anytime he uses them, like it's not great, and everyone's like, "Stop doing that, you dummy."
He like
Um,
loses control a little
yeah.
bit.
They meet a spooky green haired dude who's just like, "Ah, I'm going to come to show you a thing. Here's a monster." Ah.
His name's
And
Campanella.
yes, he's one of the members of Ouroboros who we'll meet.
He is Enforcer number 0, and
The fool.
he puts up a weird shield so that Reen can no longer call up
Mm-hmm.
Valamar.
So they fight the monster, and then like he's like, "Oh, can't do anything still." And then like the shield gets shattered, and he's like, "Oh, excuse me, what?" And then
How'd
Emma
that
and
happen?
Celine show up, and they're like,
Yay!
"Hey, what's up, dummy? Stop being a dummy. Here's the thing to wear so like your powers don't get out of control, you dummy." And Emma's like, "Hello, I am more of a witch now. I have more powers. Yay! Here's a
Yay!
hug."
I'm still looking for Vita.
But
Which one thing that's funny though is that when Reen meets Laura, he's like, "Wow, you're more beautiful than I remember. I almost didn't recognize you." When he meets Elisa, he's like, "Wow, you're more beautiful than I remember. Like I almost didn't recognize you." Then when he meets Emma, he doesn't say that. They just like shake hands basically. I'm like, "Wow."
oh, it's nice to see you again. Hello,
Like
business associate.
she takes both hands and holds one of his hands, but I'm like,
Look,
okay.
when you have to. There's no hugging amongst witches.
Well, apparently Reen's showing favorites here.
But to tie back into the power thing, like he has that happen in the previous chapter in the forest,
Mhm.
and basically once he gets out of it, like time stops for him, and then a spooky ghost lady shows up and is like, "Hello, I'm gonna give you a smooch. Here's some new powers, my dude. All right, later."
It's hilarious that it's like it pops up, like the screen goes black and it does a text pop up, and it's like, because of a mysterious kiss from a girl, like Reen can do this power now. I'm like, wait, what?
He's like, "Okay, thanks."
Reen don't accept kisses from random women. Actually, she's not even like she's a small child. Or at least she looks like a small child.
So yeah, all that happens, and then you meet with Emma and Celine, and they're like, "Hey, stop being a dummy and control your powers, you fool."
And
Jeez.
the boathouse that you mentioned also has Kenneth,
Mhm.
who
He's a fish man.
he is the fisherman. He is Reen's buddy. And there's also a professor there. He is a visiting professor from a very prestigious school, and he is studying the area.
I was like, as soon as that dude showed up, I'm like, this dude's suspicious. This dude is not just gonna be I'm just a random traveling professor, ha ha. And then like he'll show up again later. And I was like, that's it. This dude's suspicious. Like the way these games have like set you up, like anytime you meet someone new, it's like, okay, are they A, suspicious, B, going to stab me in the back at some point, or C, just die a horrible grimslet death.
D, maybe a mix of all of these.
Maybe a mix of all of them. Come back from the dead again, then somehow be an ally.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing. Anyway, yeah, so he's just like, "Hello, I am this prestigious professor. Hello, I'm out doing field studies. Goodbye now. I'm sure I won't ever see you again."
Nope, never.
So yeah, you have Emma now. You have Celine now. You've seen Elisa. You've hung out with Sharon. Got her Machias.
So that leads you all to the big party.
Yes, the big party.
The prince and princess are, and Reen's sister's there. You get to talk to everyone, and Oliver goes, "Aha!"
Oh my god, my text message sound. Hold on. Can I play it?
Yes.
All right, let's see if I can like actually play it so that people can hear it. Let me crank up my sound here. This is probably gonna hurt everything, isn't it?
Okay, yeah.
That's my text message sound now. But yeah, that whole line is like, "Aha, welcome, young Reen," and I'm like, wait, what?
So like you're talking with the princess and Reen's sister and just like chit chat, and he just shows up like, "Ah!"
Like, ah!
And like that line happened, and we were like on chat talking, and like I just kept repeatedly going, "Aha! Aha! Aha!" You're
I
like,
was
can
like,
we get
man,
that as a text tone? I was like, I got you, my dude.
I was like, I want that as a text tone. You're like, I got this. I can do it. And then you send it to me like, yes. So that is now my text tone.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like Jared will just send me a text message and say, aha. It's just great. What a good line that is. What good voice acting, Matt Mercer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
good job, buddy. At this point, though, you do see Elise, you do see Alphen, you do see Oliver, and they do mention that like their brother is acting a little weird.
Yep.
It's kind of a passing thing that they're like, yeah, he's a little bit different. And they seem kind of bummed about it. And also, I didn't realize until later, but they gave Elise a boob window, and Alphen has a boob window too. And Alphen has like tiggle bitties now.
They're now Giorno Giovanna.
Basically, yeah. So you get to meet with all these people. You get to meet with Arena and Makis's dad, Regnitz,
Mm-hmm.
and he's basically talking about like the 8 cities plan or whatever, that like they want taxation to be the same, and it's gonna basically get rid of like autonomy for certain places.
Mm-hmm.
People are a little concerned about this, but we don't have time to be super concerned about this because things are going terrible now.
Yeah, we're gonna go to a party.
Yeah, there's a party, but
Also, you talk to Rufus.
oh yeah, he sucks.
But he sucks, so yeah.
But one thing that's interesting about that talk is that Reen's like, am I talking to the Governor General right now, or am I talking to the Iron Blood?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, mostly the Iron Blood. Like,
I feel like anytime you hear that voice actor, you know he's going to be villainy, but he's so good.
he's so good. Like every time I hear him, I'm like, God, you're amazing, but God, you're evil.
There's only one exception to that rule, but
there's
for
one
the most
exception
part,
to the rule. But for the most part, he always plays bad guys. So like
it's because he's so good.
We should have seen it coming when we heard that voice. But no, I was thrown off because I'm like, oh, Rufus is Eustace's brother. It's fine. Everything's fine. Nope, he's just he's Jade Rook. Get out of here, buddy.
So they have to go guard a party, and the rest of the branch campus kiddos get to come and hang out. So they're doing all that, and then kaboom, explosion.
Kaboom. Well, before that, there's an interesting conversation in the emergency stairwell.
It's true. The princess and Reen's sister talk with Muse, and they're like, "Why didn't you tell us you went to the branch campus? Why are you under this new name?" And you're like, huh?
And Reen's like there, and she's like, "It's okay. Your dashing brother will take care of me if anything happens." And they're like, and Reen's like,
He's like, oh, sorry, I guess I was here. Whoops.
But yeah, then there's an explosion, and things are bad, and so the group splits again. Reen and Sharon go to the roof, and they're like, we got this. We'll take care of it.
They meet Campanella and our boy
McBurn. McBurn is up there, and they have blown up a ship.
He's like, hey, what's up? Heard you guys were here, so I wanted to see what's up. You guys gonna fight or something? I'll be cool with that. I like to fight. You, Reen. You're pretty tough. Sharon, we fought before, or we used to work together, but I bet you'd be a good fight too. So, let's do this. McBurn just wants to fight things. He just wants
to fight.
Yeah. McBurn is the Goku of Trails of Cold Steel.
He's an idiot.
Also, he just likes to fight things.
Oh, okay.
I mean, McBurn is kind of an idiot, but
he's kind of an idiot.
He also just wants to fight everything and just wants like the ultimate fight, and that's exactly he's the Goku of Trails of Cold Steel.
That's hilarious. Yeah, McBurn just wants to fight all the things, and so the kiddos eventually show up, and Reen's like, oh God, you realize these people are like actual monsters? Like, you are going to die. But then he's basically like, all right, there's one order, and that is survive no matter what you do.
And then like basically you have to like kind of like whittle down the two dudes' HP a bit. And that's it.
Is taken on by the new kids, and McBurn is taken on by Sharon and Reen.
Then you dispatch of them. Sharon takes a decent blow and is just like, oh.
Yeah, she gets fired by McBurn.
And then they unveil a mech.
Yep.
So you got to fight another mech.
It's got spirit. Not yet. You don't fight the mech until you get to the.
Right. They're just like, here, look at this mech. Anyways, cool. Later, bye.
And then your pals show up, and Emma's like, by the way, that explosion in that ship, that's an illusion. That's not real. And they try and get Sharon taken care of, and then the next day
there's also like a big scene on there because like no one really does anything to take out Ouroboros or like capture them, even though like Rufus is there and everything, and Eunice is like, what the are you doing? Like, you come into our country and then you're just gonna let these people do whatever the they want? Like, what the are you doing? You.
This is also where we get the reveal of the birdcage plan.
Where like they have basically taken the members of the Crossbell games and just put them on a different island and told them to off, and we're just gonna keep them locked up there until people literally forget about them.
Yep. And so Rufus has a part in that, and Una freaks out, which I mean, understandable, but yeah, Campanella's like, yeah, by the way, the SSS, they're not coming, they're locked on the island. You can ask this weird guy over here in the green about that, because he's doing that plan, but like, no, you're on your own, that's not happening. And Una kind of has like a mental break, which is intense. So she ends up kind of like staying in bed and being very, very depressed. And Altina and Kurt are trying to like help her out.
And some of like the other classmates as well.
Yeah, I think like Louise and there's Jessica are her two friends from tennis club that are trying to help.
So basically, like, it's kind of the same thing that happened at the end of chapter 1, where like Reen's like, I'm gonna go with the old class 7 folks, but like you two being Altina and Kurt being like, you need to take care of Una. Make sure like whatever she needs, she gets. If you're able to talk her up and get her into fighting shape, we'll be here. But just make sure she's all right.
And he does say like, I want you guys there, but I want the whole of class 7 there. And he also leaves like a voicemail, basically like a recording for Una. And I think this is one thing that's really interesting, is that like Altina at this point gets a lot of character development, because she's starting to like understand a little bit more about like feelings and emotions and all that. Also, Kurt Vander is a good boy here, I will say, because he's one, like really, really nice and trying to like help her through all this. But also, she's sitting in a way that you could look right up her skirt if you wanted to. And Kurt Vander never does.
Nope, not doing that.
What a good boy he is. Also, anytime you go into the vents or up ladders, he's like, I'm not looking. It's fine. You don't have to worry about it.
Maybe Kurt Vander just has really bad eyesight.
Maybe Kurt Vander does have bad eyesight, or maybe he's just a good boy. And he's like, no, I don't look at panties unless I am given permission to look at panties.
Hello, I'm Kurt Vander, Mr. Consent.
Good boy. Good boy.
So yeah, like basically this kind of splits off into like you see in the new kiddos trying to figure all that out, and then Reen and his pals basically trying to figure out like why is the spirit veins all acting up.
All right, they go down first.
Yeah, they have to go down to the underground, and they get help from Tio,
who is under house arrest, but
yeah,
is able to project herself as an avatar.
She uses her powers along with Emma. They're like, all right, let's do all this weird tech magic stuff and then figure out exactly where all this is happening, and then you go and figure it out, and then you lead you to this tower, which is essentially like
Stargazer Tower,
one of the old like kind of like shrine areas from the second game.
The area is really beautiful. Like, I like the look of this dungeon. It's very aesthetically pleasing. And then you get to the top, and you're like, oh, hello, McBurn and Campanella and
like,
Giant
Hey,
Mech.
what's up? We were just up here, just chilling.
Yep.
Waiting for a fight.
So your kiddos eventually show up while all this is happening, and you realize like, oh, hey, they figured out a way to like get their mechs here too, and also bypass this weird shield. So they're able to get Valimar there. They're able to get whoever's mech you want. I think Yuna at this point.
And also Ash and Muse are there as well because they're like, "Hey, you guys leaving? We want to come too." And they're like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Come on, come on, new friends."
So they're there, and they fight the mech and take it down, and then McBurn's like, "Well, you're useless now," and just like burns the shit out of the mech.
He just melts it.
He just melts it, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, you can come out now," and we see one Vita.
Mm-hmm.
And
so we know Vita has been out and about because her radio show has come back.
Abin Time is back.
Abin Time's back, so we know she's out about doing something. But also, like, they have made mention that she is on the outs of Ouroboros right now.
Yeah, they do not get along at the moment because
so like they are trying to find her, and she's just like, "Hello, here's a projection of me. Hello, kiddos.
Yep.
Hello, Emma." And I was like, "Why aren't you coming back?" And Vita's just like, "Stuff's happening."
Yep.
So like they have a little talk, and then is it Vita who's points out the other person?
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, you can show yourself too," and then like this person named Siegfried shows up with like a little
Azure Siegfried. He's got a ball with him.
He does have a ball that talks. And he's
like, "Oh."
Yeah, so two major things happen here. One being that Reen is like, oh no. There's no way. There's no way because
I saw you die in my arms that night.
This person looks suspiciously like Crow.
It's like Crow went and watched a bunch of Gundam and was like, "All right, I want to wear a Char mask, so I'm going to do that."
Also, something that happens here that I didn't catch the first time, but I did catch on my New Game Plus that I did like immediately after, is that when the voice talks from the little floating ball, Elisa looks at it and is like, "No."
Ooh.
And I'm like, "Whoa! What?" But she says like no, and then is kind of like in a daze, and Reen's like, "Hey, are you okay?" She's like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. And like,
which like at that point in time, you would just think like, "Oh, she's just
you would
reacting."
think it's because Crow, but it's specifically after the guy talks in the ball, and I'm like, "Oh, I was so mad that I didn't notice that." But when I did notice it, I was like, "Oh, that's a good thing that they did there. That's really, really clever." But yeah, so now we have Vita back. We have maybe Crow, and then we have a floating ball who is part of the gnomes.
So so we learn about the gnomes a little bit.
Yeah, the gnomes are here. They're part of the Black Workshop, basically, and
they're a group that basically goes back to the very beginning, essentially.
Yes.
So
also, the mech is burned to bits because McBurn got burn happy, I guess.
And weird Professor Man's like, "Get some pieces. I want to study it."
Yep.
And they're like, "Okay."
So that's basically like how Crossbell ends. But on the train back, you get a little scene.
Yes.
Which is interesting. You get the Crossbell folks who have been released from the birdcage, and they're like waving at you on the train.
And Reen throws his fist out at one of them.
Yeah,
or he throws at the main dude.
Yeah, at Lloyd. So that's pretty cool.
That was the thing. I was like, I specifically mentioned like after I saw that to you, I was like, they have to show up in the next game, or in this game, or the next game at some point. Like, you can't just do that and be like, "Oh, later, forget about you guys."
Yeah, bye.
So like knowing that like they'll show up in the next game is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And especially because now they're like, "Oh, these kids are cool. They're on our side." Especially because Reen and Lloyd have fought before. Like,
yeah,
there's a level of respect with both of them at this point.
I'm real curious to see like how they get the Trails in the Sky folks.
Yeah.
Because like, why are they gonna show up? I mean, I guess like they would know from like Tita and Agate.
Agate.
Not Agate, or I guess his actual name is Agat.
Agat.
It's weird, but like they would know from them, I guess, like what's happening. So maybe like they get in touch with them and like, "Hey, can you guys come help?"
But also like they were very involved with Hamel.
True, and also they knew Olivier, so like they would probably
Mhm.
learn about something that happens later as well.
Yep. So I think there's a lot of ways to bring them in,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's true.
um so yeah, Crossbell, things are going crazy, right? Right?
Right?
Everything's fine.
Everything's real fine.
Um so yeah, we've gotten through that chapter. Um and then we get to chapter 3 where we
3.
again have our like free time stuff. Um and we go to
Well, before that, we have there's some important stuff that happens
oh.
in the free time. Ash and Muse join Class
Oh
7
right. Yeah, that's a little important, I
officially.
guess.
So that happens.
Ash is like, I'm just here because I want to see what you can do with that ogre power. Like you still suck and I still dislike you, but I want to see.
And Muse's like, I still want that.
I just want to bone you.
And Range is like, ugh. So like you get to they join. You get to do a little thingy with them. New schoolhouse thingy with them. George shows up.
George does show up, yes.
And he gets to help with that and hangs out with the professor because they had worked together previously and everything. Also, Elise shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And she stays for a little bit and hangs out with everyone.
With the girls.
Yeah. So all that goes down in the meantime before we go off onto the field studies part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can go ahead with that now.
Oh, I'm trying to think of.
You go to the ocean place. I don't remember what the name of it was.
Because I know you have the Juneau naval fortress at one point, and then you have what is the name of that friggin' place? For some reason I think it starts with an L. It's where Muse is from.
Mm-hmm.
In the vein of, oh hey, we are going to go to a place where somebody is connected to it.
Yes, but also there is also another place connected where Ash is from.
Yes, that is true. That is oh okay, we're in Ordis first.
Mm-hmm.
Ordis is where Muse is from, and then Raquel is where Ash is from.
Ordis is like a bigger city again.
And it's like a port city.
Yeah. And then Raquel is a much smaller place, but it also is known for like its nightlife, its gambling. It's like essentially kind of like a Las Vegas, but like a much more rural Las Vegas. Maybe like Reno.
Reno. It's worth noting that Ordis is also the area that the former Duke of Cayenne had his house.
True, yes. So like there's instability there because they're trying to figure out who's going to actually we're going to put in that spot now because we still haven't done that.
Yeah, there's this like dude who likes to party all the time. Not like Eddie Murphy, but
Thank you.
Yep. You had to know it was coming. And he wants to he's the uncle of the previous Duke of Cayenne. And
correct.
He's like, well, I'm the only one left, so of course I'm gonna get this position. Also, I drink so much. Also Eustace is here.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're having this big 4 houses meeting. Patrick is here. And
Eustace's new best bro is here.
Milliam?
Yes.
Yeah. They're friends now, like very good friends, which I was not expecting. And there's this really funny part where like Milliam is trying to like hug him and he's like, no, you are not. And
he's gotten so aware of it. He's just like, I have my evasion skills now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But I love the way he's like, no, you're not. He also does not look 10 years older. His haircut's nice. But yeah, it's a whole lot of like, all right, I'm gonna go meet Muse's family, and like they're also gonna say that Reen should boink their granddaughter, which is weird. And then after all of like those shenanigans, you go to where Ash is from. You get to talk to some people and figure out like, oh, there are a bunch of Jaeger groups like all together in this area.
Also learn a lot about like his backstory of like how he was raised from his mom and everything and what happened to her and all that.
Yeah, so she gets a tumor and dies, but
Mhm.
she adopted him when I think we 6 is what they said.
Basically.
He was a young kid, and she was like a barmaid essentially, and took him in, and he's like, yeah, she was great, she just couldn't cook, that was the only thing that was really wrong with her. um but yeah, you find out that there are 4 Jaeger groups all hanging out here.
Mhm.
Zephyr, Red Constellation, um why am I blanking on it? It's the one that's been sort of there.
Uh, Nidhogg.
Nihon. Yeah, and then the
Mysterious
fourth.
fourth group.
Yep, in purple.
And you fight
Um,
them, and they're like, "We know you," and Ranger's like, "Okay, that's it."
how do you know me?
Yeah,
Eustace shows up on a freaking horse to save you.
it's real good.
It's just hilarious. He literally shows up on a white horse and is like, I'm here to save the day.
So yeah, like a lot of that happens, and then there's a lot of stuff that happens at night and everything. You go back to the camp and everything, and then like Sarah shows up.
Yeah, Sarah shows up when you are doing the when you're at the rock patio.
Mm-hmm. And then also Claire shows up at one point as well, and then you go off with her. All those
And
three,
Angelica.
and Angelica also shows up.
Yeah.
So like you go off with all of them, and you go back to Raquel at night when like all the nightlife is happening. Try and find more information about all these Jaeger groups. Eventually, you wind up in one of the casinos, and Zephyr is there, and they're like, "Hey, you want to trade information? Play us in a children's card game."
Yep. Also, Reen breaks his moment of being good boy in this, because the informant that sold them out earlier is trying to get away from them. He's like, "Oh, look, a hot naked lady over there," and Angelica's like, "Where?" And Reen looks too, and he's like, "Oh, it got me for a second." They're like, Sarah's like, "You idiots! Like, that's the oldest trick in the book." I was like, "Oh, Reen, buddy." Also, there's a part like with an NPC that you go talk to this like hostess, and she's like, "Hey, sexy man, what's up?" And he's like, "I don't even know where my eyes are supposed to go right now." I'm like, "Oh, Reen, buddy."
He's too innocent.
He's too innocent. But yes, we are gonna play the Jaeger King in a children's card game.
And then you whoop that ass.
Yep.
But also
And
like
the kiddos show up.
who does he have play with him? So it's like Reen takes on the Jaeger King, and then the other two face
He
off
has
against.
Zeno with Sarah and Claire, and what's the other guy? For some reason I want to call him Leo, but it's not right. Zeno is one of them.
Right.
I can't remember the other guy's name, but
Hang on.
they're Zephyr and Claire and Sarah. Like, Sarah's like, I used to play Blade. I think I could do this. Claire's like, I don't know. I'm pretty
Leonidas.
smart. Leonidas. I was close with Leo.
But yeah, like they have trouble. They're like, "Oh, we're not doing so well." And then the kiddos show up and like, "Get the out of the way. We're gonna play."
Yeah, so Muse and Ash take over, and they're like, "We got this." Sarah at one point is like, "Yeah, Ash definitely cheated, but he hit it well, so it's fine."
Because he would.
Yeah, and also it turns out that like the Jaeger King definitely would have won.
Oh please, I would have whooped that regardless.
Well, they flip the cards and they're like, "Oh yeah, he had a winning hand. He just didn't do it." But he gives you information. He tells you
he don't want this smoke.
He tells you what the name of the Divine Knight is, and then he tells you a little bit more about the Jaeger Corps. And he's like, "Sarah, you should know who they are." Duh.
And then he's like, "All right, we gotta go later. Past our bedtime." We're just here to play children's card games after all.
Yeah, in the casino that Reen paid $1,000 to get into.
It's true. So that all happens. You go back. You get some smooches, but not from Valimar.
Not Valimar. I was teasing you. I was like, "Make sure you go get a smooch from Valimar."
I was like, "Oh, give me a smooch." So like Sarah and Claire give you smooches, and then I was like, "I'm gonna take a shower after each of these smooches."
Also, Sarah gives you like super strong booze.
Mm-hmm. Claire tells you a bit about her backstory as well, like and how she's related to Major Michael, which is like, oh, okay.
And she also tells you about like how she got involved with
the Osborne.
Osborne.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's really, really funny is that if you go and talk to Claire first, then go and talk to Sarah, the dialogue changes a little bit.
Yep.
Because she's like, oh, and by the way, I don't like being second to
Yeah.
Little Miss Major. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, damn.
I believe that's what happened to me.
Well, it wasn't the first time because I talked to Sarah the first time, then I went and talked to Claire, and like Claire didn't say anything.
I went to talk to Claire first, and then I talked to Sarah, and she was like,
I did it opposite the second time. I went and talked to Claire first, and Sarah's like, I don't appreciate that. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, Reen got smooches. Which again makes me a little uncomfortable. Especially because Claire was comparing you to her little brother who's dead.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
A little weird. And Sarah was your teacher.
Yeah, that's also a little weird.
Yeah, so anyway, that happens. And then everything really goes to shit. Like real bad. There's probably some things in between that happened, but essentially, like, there are these like railway cannons.
You're missing a big thing in between.
Am I?
We got to go off to the island.
Oh, right, the island. I forgot about the island.
So you get a call from Eustace at one point. He's like, have you talked to Milliam at all today? And they're like, no. And he's like, well, she's kind of missing. So you round up the kiddos and you basically go off and you're like, all right, we're going to go find Milliam. And eventually you find out like, oh, she went off to this island to go find some stuff. And then you're like, oh, I guess we're going to go to this island to go find some stuff. She drives a boat. You go around, you see a big statue thing that is totally not a place where Stallritter and McBurn have chatted before or anything. Spooky ghost lady shows back up and bites you. She's like, hey, what's up, my dude? I'm gonna give you a chomp. And you're like, and no, please.
Amazing, because like when you come out of that and everything, Ash is like, so were you having fun with those ladies last night? Because you got a little something there.
And like, and I think Musei is like, oh, you smell of lavender.
And he's like,
the smell would not permeate over the course of a night, please.
That's the thing is, Reen's like, no, that smell would not last that long, but also like, no. And then Kurt Vander's like,
he puts his hand on shoulder and is like, look, buddy, you're not going to talk your way out of this. It's just
the more you deny
it,
the more suspicious it looks.
Real good.
But then they find out like if he uses his pendant that Celine and Emma gave him, they can like activate the shrines.
And then eventually it causes a big shrine to appear.
And it looks a lot like the shrines from the last game.
So I was like, oh, we got to go through one of these. And then it's like, oh, you're going through like one room and that's it.
Well, and Reen tells them, he's like, you cannot go with me. And they're like, no, we are going with you. Like, come on.
I guess.
So they go. He calls Valimar because he wants Valimar to hang tight.
He's like, hey, Valimar, can you bring 2 of your buddies with you? And he's like, acknowledged. I will bring my buds. We're gonna crack open a few cold ones while we wait.
God. And so the Stallritter are down there. They have kidnapped Milliam and put her in like a weird net. And Reen decides like, oh hey, I'm going to go ogre mode. I should do that. Also, Valimar gets like caught up with another mech and is like, I can't
teleport
help.
and just like chokes them and is like, help.
Yeah. So that's bad. And then Gaius shows up.
Gaius shows up with his bird.
What a good boy, Gaius.
He's like, hey, Reen, my dude, you don't have to. You gotta stop going all out like this. It's not going well.
Also, he keeps bringing up. He's like, yeah. So they've said multiple times like they've been out of touch. He's like, yeah, I'll tell you about it eventually.
Tell you about it eventually.
Yeah,
I'll wait till everyone's together and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. But he just keeps putting it off, which is kind of funny. But Gaius is back. He's still a good boy. And he hello, speaking of good boys. And so you get Milliam back. And then other things happen. Sorry, I missed that giant chunk of story there.
So you go back to the area, like the big town, and they're doing their summer festival. So you get to go walk around there and do some stuff, and then go back home to the base.
To the train.
You get to go to sleep, and then oh god, you get woken up by explosions.
And Randy's like, I know how far those things are.
So you have to. So the railway cannons that you see earlier
And
in this
Crossbell.
chapter. No, you see early in this chapter,
I thought you saw him in Crossbell because
or maybe it was in Crossbow. Regardless, you see him on a train at one point.
yeah, you see him on a train.
They have been stolen by the Jaegers and Ouroboros.
Yep. And they're being fired at Ortis.
So you gotta go fight them, and you bring your pals with you, and some other pals show up. Like Le Guin's dude shows up and is like, "I'm gonna fight McBurn," and McBurn's
The
like,
Black Whirlwind.
"Let's do this. I want to fight someone. You seem pretty strong. I'll fight you."
A gate is there. Tobal shows up. I forget who else is all there. Major Michael and all the other kiddos show up.
A lot of people show up, and then they're like, "Hey, you should go over to the fortress and get that and see what's going on over there, because there's probably stuff going on over there." So you head over to the fortress, and then you're about to go in, and then Zephyr is like walking in front of like, "No, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be our fight. We're gonna clear this out."
And Siegfried's there.
And Siegfried's there with them. And they're like, "No, we're going to do it." And they're like, "No, we're going to do it." And then Le Guin shows up and just like walks up and is like, "We're going in there." And they're like, "I don't know." And then she's like, "I'm going to do one attack and then you're going to off." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, waltz right in. Why don't you?"
She's like, "This was my fort and I'm taking it back. I entrusted it to my right-hand man and no one else can have it." And then she goes in and a freaking cryptid shows up and she's like, "No," and just one tack KOs it and then just like destroys the grass. It's like, "We are not dealing with this right now. Let's go."
She is fed up with this and she is ready to have her fort back.
It is hilarious.
So you have to split up into two
teams.
Two teams. Which is it's just like Reen and some folks, and then the kiddos
and Angelica
and Angelica. So this is the portion that shows up in the prologue, except they do not show Angelica for reasons.
Because whoever's in that last slot can technically be switched out, which I think is why they didn't show whoever it would be.
Right.
But yeah, that's a little bit off. But you work your way through this. You fight the Stall Ritter again. Or at least two members of the Stall Ritter.
Once you get all the way up to the top.
Le Guin talks about how she doesn't want to crawl through vents because her chest is too large. You also meet the fourth Jaeger group, which they're the Northern Jaegers, which we found out the night before that Sarah has like severe daddy issues.
Yeah.
And she admits, and that her dad was her adopted dad was a Jaeger, and that he basically like died protecting her, and that
all these folks that are like here now are basically people she kind of knows, essentially.
Yeah.
She like fought with and everything.
They basically want to like take Le Guin down because she had a part in the Northumbria annexation.
And they basically want this to be a place where they can die.
Yeah. And so like once they lose the battle, they're like, "All right, time to commit suicide." And Reen's like, "No, you do not get to do that." And so he like ogres and is trying to defeat or try to take the gun out of one like all their hands. He misses one, but Sarah's like, "No, not happening, buddy." So it's a lot of like backstory here of Sarah. But eventually you get through all that and you get to the top, and there's another mech. It's the spooky mech that can do all kinds of time thingies or space thingies. It's not really.
And all Stall Ritter is there, so you got the three and the main gal who takes off her mask and
she's Sandlot.
Yeah, who is supposed to have been dead for a long time.
Yep, a very, very, very long time. And so Le Guin is like, "Cool, always wanted to fight you. Let's do this.
Let's go."
So they fight, and then you have the mech fight with the big mech, and then the main Stall Ritter lady, who is Sandlot and should have been dead, like summons up a ghost mech who is a divine
well,
knight.
before that, there was actually like an interesting thing that happens in that mech fight where the teleporting mech breaks the sword of Valimar.
Oh, right.
And
Like the
then
tip,
like and
just the
everyone's
tip.
like and then somehow like he's able to like create like a monosword through like everyone's combat links and everything, and they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
it's fine. So like yeah, that's a interesting thing that happens in that. But then yeah, basically what you said, the Steel Maiden brings out her own mech and is like, all right, bite later, guys.
She destroys what's left of the giant
Hmm.
mech. It was like, bye. And Reen's like, what is happening? Which, I mean, solid question, Reen.
Oh, and Siegfried shows up and is like, hey, you guys still aren't ready.
Yeah. He's like, y'all are baby level still.
You noobs.
um, so yeah, things are kind of nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we're gonna go to chapter 4, and chapter 4 in True Cold Steel.
Well, about that.
Well, I wanted to say that chapter 4 is where things go nuts because that's Cold Steel style.
Yes, you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something big that happens at the end of
I
chapter 3.
know.
Okay.
There's something very, very big that happens in
So
chapter 3, which is kind of like our snowball to crazy pants chapter
yes.
4.
So obviously Angelica is there and sees Siegfried and is like, guys, what the f-? And like mean mugs him right as he's leaving. She's like,
Yep.
So the big like cliffhanger for chapter 3 is that she goes and finds his grave, Crow's grave specifically, and digs it up and opens the coffin and is like, oh, this is like a doll. Like he is not decomposed. There's no smell of decomposition. Like what the f- is going on? And then someone like shows up and is like, what are you doing here? And it's George. And they're like, and she's like, what the f- are you doing? What the f- happened? And then you see someone show up behind him, and Angelica recognizes him, and he's like, oh, I guess you would have seen me in this face before. Georg, which is George's name, get rid of her. And then it cuts to black, and you hear a gunshot. And you're just like, what the f- is going on?
Yep.
And then we get to chapter 4.
Again, like snowballing into Crazy Pants chapter 4, because chapter 4 always goes crazy pants.
Yeah, because we get midterms.
Yay! Midterms! We should have mentioned that, like, throughout some of this, like.
Oh, we did not mention. There's a big thing that we did not mention.
The prince?
Yes, which I think that's in chapter 3, the beginning of chapter 3.
Yeah.
The prince shows up to the branch campus and is like, hey, Reen, you should come back to the main campus and teach there. And everyone's like, excuse me? And Reen's like, excuse me? And he's like, Kurt Vander, why don't you come to the main campus and be there? Why would you waste your time here at this hick sticks campus? And everyone's like, excuse me? And he's like, oh yeah, the prince is a now.
Yeah, he sucks. So Cedric is back and he's tall now. But he sucks. And so like that warning from Alphen and Oliver is like, okay, yes, this makes sense. He sucks now.
He at one point brings his like class members to the mech fights, and then you just whoop his ass, and they're like,
yeah,
we'll come back and beat you up later.
So he sucks a lot.
This is why you do not put people into mechs.
I mean, Reen's been in a mech and he doesn't suck.
We didn't get forced into a mech. This is this is the key things you learn from this and Evangelion. Don't force people into mechs.
True. Okay. Yeah. Fair. So he's become a super, super big. And Kurt's like, he wasn't like that. This is weird.
I think Rena's as well. Like,
Yeah. So then when we get to chapter 4, we realize that we're going to go to Heimdall for the field studies. And old class 7's like, oh, hey, we're also going to be in Heimdall. Do you want to meet up?
And then you also learn that, oh, by the way, the main campus is going to be in Heimdall as well. Because they just started doing their own field studies.
Yep. Yay.
Also, at one point in the beginning of chapter 4, you fight Le Guin and Laura's dad.
Yes.
In a very tough fight.
Very tough. And you also learned that Laura's dad was like injured in the fight with McBurn and has like respiratory issues now.
So like he is not really in a state where he can fight really anymore.
He still like tried to kick my pretty
He
strongly.
did.
So
Like him and Le Guin have like a fight, and it's like one shot, and then he like his tie gets cut, and he's like, "All right, you done it.
yep.
You have surpassed me." And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I heard you fought the Steel Maiden. How was that?" And she's like, "Oh my god, that ruled."
Yeah, she basically like fangirls out. It's really funny.
He's like, "Oh, I guess you've found your peak as a fighter now." Also, you have another. You learn about the midterm results. You tied with the main campus, which is the princess class for overall.
Kurt Vander got 3.
Third, yeah. You have another you have a fight, mech fight, and Altina finds her mech that she likes, but then like she goes haywire in it and loses control and consciousness.
She uses the mech that like the mech style that V used, and so it's like the giant one. But yeah, she goes unconscious and loses control, and Reen's like, "All right, guess I gotta freaking fight this and take this child out."
So that's something they don't like after this happened. They don't address it because obviously a bunch of other kind of takes precedent, but that's an interesting thing that happens.
It is.
Like I wonder, obviously we are theorizing here, but like, is that a case of the fact that like of how she was made and just does not agree with a mech? But obviously she's piloted the other ones and just like didn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and one thing that is worth noting is that the Panzer Soldats are the plan of a certain someone who runs the Black Workshop.
True.
Who also made Altina. So, there is also that. I also forgot to mention in chapter 3 that Reen just buys his kids ice cream at one point.
It's very
and
good.
It's really, really cute.
And it is like suspicious as well because like that big mech just kind of just gets dropped off at one point. There's like, yeah, they just dropped it off here, I guess. I don't know.
And there's a comment about it by somebody, like just like a throwaway comment of like, oh, they're doing that now. And it's like, And on the train, when you talk to Altina, which is a little bit later, but she's talking to Schmidt, and he's like, "Yeah, if you would let me, Quam Soleus, then I might could give you some answers. But until then, like, you're a puppet. I can't tell you anything." It's like, for one move, dude.
That's just the way he is.
Yeah, he sucks. But two, like,
he's very much like logic first, everything else, whatever.
One of the things that I find interesting about this scene, though, is that like Altina summons Quam Soleus, and like he beat boops at her, and she's like, "No, I just needed to like have you present." And so she has that connection to him, but she's actually like feeling things, and she needs some kind of like comfort there that is normal for her. And so like that's a good part of her arc, that like she understands that there's an issue there. She understands that she feels bad because he said that to her, and like her method of dealing with it is like essentially her like buddy that she's been born with and has had her entire life. It was interesting. It was cute.
Yeah.
It was sad. But...
So we move on to Heimdallr. There is a scene I think that happens before we get there. But you see someone meet up with Vita and basically offer an alliance of some sorts. And then like it pans up and it's Instructor Thomas.
Yep.
Who has showed up for like the first time this game.
Yep.
Of course, like if you remember from the previous game, like he's revealed to be like, I'm one of the like head dudes of like the church, the secret part of the church which does like all this weird.
Yeah.
So like he shows up and is offering an alliance to Vita, which is very interesting. But yeah, so you go to Heimdallr and you go do all your stuff. Because you got a lot of stuff to do. You get to go meet Toa's family.
Meet Kurt Vander's mom.
Meet Kurt Vander's mom. Then
who Ash is like, oh man, she's just my type. Is this your sister? And Kurt's like, that is my mother?
No, that's my mom.
Kurt Vander's mom is hot.
You get to whoop her ass in a children's card game at one point.
Well, not yet, but
at one point.
She's running the Vander school at the moment while the rest of the family is out. Yeah, you're just kind of getting a lay of the land at the moment, which we're getting more areas that we had not been to in Heimdall.
Mhm.
Um, because we're
Heimdall's
on
a
the
big
west.
place.
Yeah, we have the west side now. Um, like there's only one street that we've actually been on before.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that there's like listening devices everywhere, and that there are these like Calvardian agents that
Mm-hmm.
are hanging out.
Spies.
Also, when you go and meet with Governor Regnitz, Chancellor Osborne also just shows up in this joint meeting with the main campus and the branch campus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the funny part about this is that like everybody stands up and like salutes him or whatever, and Reen and his class are just like, that, no, we're sitting down.
We're just gonna stand here like, off.
Yeah, and like he at one point is like, so Instructor Reen, it's been a while, and I'm like,
Reen's just like, yeah, it
yep,
has.
sure has been a while.
Everyone's like, oh.
Yeah. So they're essentially tasked with like, hey, you have to figure out this Calvardian thing.
Mm-hmm. And by doing that, you gotta go bet on some horses.
And the prince is like, let's make a competition out of this.
And Eunice is like, off.
Yeah, like Una basically says that. She's like, what sticks do you have up your
And Reen's just like, oh, kids, it's fine. Competition's not that bad.
So it's a lot of like figuring out what's going on here, trying to see like where these agents might be. Like you said, you get to bet on some horses.
Mm-hmm.
Reen's like, oh, I'm finally old enough to bet. I'm gonna go bet.
Ash is like, hey, let's go do some betting. And everyone's like, no, you can't.
You're
And
not
he's
old
like,
enough.
oh,
Um,
I want to bet.
Reen is like a grandpa and puts down like 100 mira on
He
it.
does. And then he bets on like the one that has like the highest odds, and then wins. And then everyone's like, why the didn't you put more money down, you idiot?
He's like, oh,
I'm sorry, it was my first bet.
let me buy you some grape juice to make up
Here's,
for
you
it.
guys want some juice? I can only buy one because that's how much it costs. So you're gonna have to share. Take sips. Don't do big gulps.
Ash, no.
Ash, no. That was 2 gulps. I saw you. Put that back in.
So they're don't spit it, gross. So they're asked to like go into like the Heimdall underground and like the catacombs to take care of some stuff and try and find these agents, and like also they've been hearing growls.
So they find a bunch of the flowers show up there. They also find agents there who have like these weird battle suits that turn invisible, or they are able to like do astral projection and be like, oh, we're going this way, but it's like, oh, we're going this way. So they do that, and then eventually they chase them out of the underground area into like a graveyard, and where the main campus is waiting for them, and they're like, oh, we got him. And it's like the prince is like, oh, we did it, we were the ones who captured him. And then Nightheart's like, hey, face, it wouldn't have been if it wasn't for the branch campus's help, we wouldn't have been here to catch them, so shut the up.
Yeah, so at least somebody doesn't suck here. And so like once that's taken care of, Reen's like, oh, by the way, since we're here, like, do you guys mind if I just like stop off at this grave over here? And so he does, and like he goes and talks a little bit about Crow and how much he liked him and all that jazz. And as they're walking off, Una looks down. She's like, oh, hey, there's this pin here in the dirt. That's interesting. And they're looking at it, and then Reen's like, this is Angelica's.
And then also, does someone at that same time mention like,
the dirt's been moved?
Does this dirt look like it's been messed with or something? And they're like, so like, you is this where you gather all of Class 7 to like show up there as well?
Reen calls the campus and is like, hey, we need to figure out what's going on here.
Because it's like, hey, I found this of Angelica. Is she missing or something? Has anyone heard from her? And apparently no one has.
She's been missing.
Yep.
Yeah, she's been missing.
So that's not good.
Toa is starting to get very concerned because she cannot get in touch with Angelica, and she cannot get in touch with George. How about that? So I don't know why you made me sound like Steve Urkel there. But there is a point where you meet with Class 7 and they're like, oh, hey, this is really weird. But I don't think it's this point. I think this is more, I think that's after you meet up with the Class 7 at night. I think this is the moment where it's just like, I need to call the branch campus. We need to put an investigation into this. And Le Guin and a few others at the train are like, but did you actually see the body, or did you like
think you saw the body?
Think you saw the body.
And it was like, is this also the next day where like they have Le Guin and a few others and Randy Orlando and a few others basically comb the undergrounds
the catacombs
again to try and find more stragglers?
And they're like, oh man, every time we capture them, they're just like scared, like they've seen a ghost, and like they don't give any information. And
also when you're in the catacombs again, spooky ghost lady shows up again. It's like, hey, I got a place where you can go this way. All right, later, we'll talk again soon. And Marine's basically like, I kind of think I know who you are, and she's like, yeah.
I'll tell you about it.
So like at night again, she sees some of the Calvard agents walk into like some kind of spirit monster, and just like, well, I could have tried to help them, but they're already kind of so whoops.
Yeah. Bummer.
Big bummer. So yeah, you go off and do some more stuff in the next day. Like you go to the girls' school where Elise and the princess go to go talk to them, go do some other stuff.
Is this where Reen like threatens to kill people? No, that's
probably. He does at some point.
He does at some point, but like at one point there's a quest where there are some shady individuals like trying to take the girls from the girls' school and use his money and influence to like do bad things. And one of them like touched Elise's face.
He's like, that will mean death.
He's like, the only suitable punishment is death. Well, he's got like this creepy grin on his face, and I'm like, Reen?
Everyone's like,
And so like Class 7, the new Class 7 handles it, and then Reen just like cuts all the tires off the car as he's fleeing. God. And they're like, Reen has to get his sister complex under control.
After that, you go and hang out. It's just, at night, the previous night, I think, is when you go hang out with the Class 7 and have your big reunion with everyone. Where Milliam's like, you're all my friends.
Reen takes his motorcycle into town, hangs out with his bros, all the people
pals.
That they do their handshakes.
It's pretty good.
All the pals who are illegal to drink.
Milliam it's like wants Milliam, to get drunk. Elliot, and Fee are like having soda.
Yeah, and Milliam wants to get drunk, and they're like, no, you're like 15.
They could basically kind of go over everything that's happened and kind of do a big summary. Guys is like, hey, I'll tell you about all this stuff again at some other point.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, so we promised we would get back together. We're back together.
Now what are we doing?
What are we doing?
But yeah, so all that happens. And then in the day after you kind of do all your quests and everything, you're kind of going around and seeing all the Class 7 folks and talking to them, trying to get like, because they're all going out and getting information and everything, trying to like Emma and Gaius mention like, oh, weird things are happening. Like Emma keeps mentioning like the spirit veins are real messed up. Gaius keeps mentioning like the wind is very foreboding and everything. So like they're all talking about that, and then eventually you kind of go like, hey, let's all go get lunch. And by that I mean like the new kiddos. You go get lunch, and then afterwards you go to the Imperial Museum, and then you split off into like 3 different teams. Yeah,
so the bell that was at the Stargazer Tower is kind of like losing it.
The one that was in Crossbell.
Yeah, and so you go down to like the catacombs, and there is a big critter there, and you fight it, and I think this is where a little lady shows up and gives the reveal so you can have the talismans.
Basically you're gonna go fight a dragon that up Heimdall 800 years ago.
Yeah, so we fought the bone dragon in the first game, and it's like,
now you gotta fight the real dragon.
You gotta fight the real dragon. He's back. Also, there are vampires.
Yeah, vampires exist, and that's what's happened to the Calvard people. And everyone's like,
They're called Night Touched.
Yeah, that'll happen. This is also one of the parts where the game really the bed in terms of frame. Right? Like there are some parts in chapter 3 where this
Yeah.
happens as well, where like it gets a little hitchy in here and there. Once you get deep into the dragon dungeon, like it gets real bad. Like there are times like when you would kind of like pop out of a battle, it would just be like, okay, I'm going. When I would pop, like I'd put the map up and try and look around and come out, I would still get that little hitching and chunkiness, and just even like running around a little bit, like it would happen here and there. It seemed to happen a lot more when you're in speedy mode, but it did seem to be kind of affecting you if you were in just normal speed as well. So
Yeah.
it's a very bizarre thing because like it happens only in a few spots. Like here's like the biggest place where it happens the worst, and it's just very strange because like nowhere else does it happen in the game, and it doesn't really seem like there's anything real big happening in this area that would be taxing on the game itself. So I don't know what's happening. And then like we're like, what, this will be when this comes out will be like 2 months post release, and doesn't look like there's gonna be any patches or anything coming out for this. So it's very bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I got through it, but it's not ideal.
Yeah,
and it's weird because like the rest of this game is so like
it's fine.
Yeah.
There's no problems.
So yeah, like I said, we get the reveal at this point, like, oh hey, this little lady who's been following us around and smooching us and biting us and all. For one, she is grandmother.
She's Emma and Vita's grandma.
Yeah. And she's like, I didn't always look like this, you know.
The leader of the Hexen clan.
So she gives you some talismans so you can free up any Calvardian agents that are still in the dungeon. She's like, yeah, so you kind of have to go take care of this because this is a big deal. This dragon sucks, and this dragon can destroy the world. Like, please take care of it.
Also, if you want more answers, we'll talk later.
Yeah. So you take your 3 squads and you work your way through the dungeon, and it functions a lot like the Juno Fortress did, except for now you have an extra team.
So it's like you'll move one team around, and then eventually you'll get to a spot where you're kind of stuck, so you have to move another team, and then they'll get to a place, and then you'll move the third team, and you'll get to a place, and eventually you'll be like, oh well, we're all in this one little tile, so now everything's going to unlock, and now you get to go move on to the next area, and so on and so forth.
And the neat thing about this is that they're like, all right, there are no like old and new at this point. We're all just class 7. And so you have like
the
mix
new kiddos have earned their stripes.
Yeah, you have like a mix of all the class groups. It's like, this is neat. So as you make your way through, eventually you do get to fight this big dragon.
And it basically kind of like the fight takes place in the way it's like
it's a phase battle.
Yeah, so group 1 will take it down to this amount of health, then you'll switch over to group 2, they'll take it down to this amount of health, and then group 3 will finish the job, which the second group, that fight is tough.
Yeah, the second group is the hardest phase, period. I had a hard time with that one.
I did too.
Both playthroughs, and like that's crazy that I had a hard time with it on the second playthrough.
Yeah,
I should not have had that, but I did.
And then afterwards you have to fight it with your mechs, take it out, and then it's done. So take it out for dinner.
Rose, the Hexen clan leader, is like able to seal it because they're like, oh god, that's miasma. That's what made the red mech go crazy, like and make it violent and evil. Like, please don't get near that ring.
Once all that happens, Siegfried shows up and is like, hey, what's up, guys? And Reed's like, I want to kick your ass. And he's like, okay. Yeah,
he's like, how many people of this class do you want to take me on? And Reed's like, no, it's just me. I'm gonna fight you
1-on-1.
And
so you fight him.
Well, the funniest thing is he's like, sometimes you just have to go like blade to blade, even though you have guns.
Yeah.
I was like, Reed, you idiot.
So you fight him and do all that, and then don't really beat him. And then afterwards, you learn that Crow doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
His memories are gone. And Reed's like, do you really not remember anything? And Siegfried's like, all right, later.
He says one thing that Reen is like, because he says like, and
I'll help you in this time, but I'm not going to accept any interest
on this. And that is like reflecting of a line he said in 1. And Reen's like, so then I think is when they all go to like the grave site.
The grave, and afterwards. And they're just like, what's going on?
Yeah, so there's still like some you're able to get some of the Calvardian agents back, and then like you make sure that the town doesn't go, the city doesn't go into why am I blanking on the phrase for it? Martial law.
Correct.
And so then you get to go to the festival. There's a summer festival the next day.
So you get to run around and do some stuff. You get to beat up Kurt's mom in a children's card game. You get to hang out with various people and get their bonds up to max level, and then get their trophies and everything.
Make
and then
bread.
Make bread. Do horse racing if you want. That's kind of like where you get the
give away your
scene.
fake glasses.
Yeah, give away your fake glasses and see what everyone else is gonna give away.
I will say that only one of them gives you a smooch.
Mm-hmm.
And like she goes hard for that kiss.
Which I feel like that makes sense because I feel like she's the one who does it in like the other games as well.
Yeah.
So.
And 2, she was the one that gave a kiss too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you get your bonding trophies here. You also get an invitation from Lecter, because one of the Calvardian agents is still in the catacombs, and he's like, "Hey, I know you're kind of busy, but like, hey, you want to come help us out?
You want to come fight some stuff?" And Reen's like, "I guess." And then it's you, Sharon, Sarah, Agate,
Claire,
Toval.
No Toval. Tio is
Tio. It's like all like the non Thor's related characters are just like showing up together, and it's like it's this weird eclectic mix of people. And you're just like, yeah, I guess this works. All right.
Oliver's there.
Yeah, that too. He shows up.
He's at Olivier at that point.
Yeah, he's as Olivier. He's like, everyone's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "I don't know what you mean.
I'm a traveling bard.
I'm a traveling bard.
Looking
Olivier.
for love."
Everyone's like, "I guess you can come."
Just indulge him, I guess.
So yeah, you have to go fight some stuff. Ash shows up because he's been sneaking around. Everyone's like, "I guess you can come along too."
We get some backstory of Lecter in this, which turns out Lecter's dad is the one who
was the catalyst for everything.
Hummel.
Yeah. And Ash confronts him finally because you also learn that like at one point Ash is like feeding Lecter information, and Ash is like, "I hate this. I don't want to do this, but it's the only I have to do it for reasons." Also, you learn Muse is still very shady for whatever reason because she.
Oh right, we forgot to mention that Muse is like new Duke of Cayenne, basically.
Yeah, she's the new Duke of Cayenne because she's like royalty and everything, and sneaks in and does this, and it's like Eustace and Patrick and I think a few others like know about
and
it.
Angelica.
Yeah, so like they're the only ones that know about it. Everyone's just like, "Oh, I don't. What's going on?" And they're like, nothing."
But yeah, so she takes over that title at one point. The funny thing about like Ash giving the information to Lecter is that he's like, "All right, am I gonna get expelled or whatever because I'm giving information? I'm a spy." And Reen just laughs in his face.
He's like, "No, you dumb."
He's like, Altina kind of throws that out the window, like she's in the intelligence division, or
I think he also mentions that like Le Guin would have just been like, "Yeah, whatever, I don't care."
Yeah, basically, he's like, yeah, like buddy, it's no big deal.
But he confronts Lecter about everything and is like, "Were you the one that did all this?" And Lecter's like, "And my dad kind of did all this. I don't know what you want to tell you."
Yeah. So Lecter's still pretty shady, but we get a little bit more backstory on him, and they're able to save the one Calvardian agent down there, with a little help from your friends. Then you get to go hang out at the festival some more, and eventually you have to go to another party,
a big party at the imperial family's house.
Yeah.
Place.
So it's a whole lot of like going around and talking to people, and Reen at one point is like, "I really need to find an opening to talk to Osborne." And so like you keep getting notifications of Reed hasn't had time to talk to Osborne.
He just keeps missing, and like everyone just keeps talking to him, and he's like, "Oh!" He just keeps going around all these different like weird groups that are just like forming. And it's like real interesting to see like various characters talking to each other. But then eventually, he's just like everything's winding down, and then like Claire's like, "Hey, the Emperor wants to speak to you," and Green's like, "Okay."
Also, there's a dance with Alphen and Elise.
And Reen's like, I'll take both of them.
Well, I think the way that he like actually is able to pull it off is he's like, the Schwarzer siblings will dance, and then I will dance with Elfin, and everything's fine. Juice is like, yeah, good thing he did that, because otherwise they would have been planning their honeymoon already. But yeah, he kind of fandangles his way around that. I love that Patrick gets to dance with Elise, because I'm so shocked by that. Which reminds me of the part where Ash was like, "Oh yeah, you know these sheltered Saint Astrid girls. Like if you like threw them some lines, they would do anything." And Reen like puts him in like a grip on his arm. He's like
shows up behind him like that. Yeah.
He's like, "So what did you say? I must have missed some of that."
Ash is just like, nothing.
I can't feel my arm. Anyway, so yeah, the Emperor wants to meet with Reen.
So like he has a little chit chat with Reen, tells him about like all the stuff that happened in the one place.
I guess it should be mentioned before this that earlier than day, Elliot's dad, General Craig, is like, "Hey, I know who he is. He's been very, very different. Like he came back after 6 months, and Osborne.
Talking to Osborne,
yeah, Osborne is very different than what he used to be. But like we know he's your dad.
Yeah, kind of giving like a little backstory, like what actually happened.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, Emperor is like, "Hey, Reen, what up?"
And that's all he says. He's like, "Hey, Reen, what's up?"
No, he says, "What up?"
What up? Sorry. Hey, Reen, what up?
Hey, Reen, what up?
My dude. Let's shake on it. You want to play a children's card game? I wish that was the case.
So he also tells you like, yeah, it's kind of the same story. Like I knew who you were. I knew that you were his kid. I figured it out. Osborne and I have been through some very similar situations because we both lost somebody that we loved. We both had sons that, you know, we were separated from. You know, I sympathized with him a lot. But he also like gives some hints. He's like, yeah, but he's kind of shady. Like, he's not exactly the same dude.
But also, he's like, I'm not going to do anything to him because.
Correct.
Basically, am I going to be really able to do anything to him?
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, I just kind of have to like let it happen and see if anybody can stop it. So that's an interesting conversation. And then as he's leaving, he gets another summon.
He gets to go talk to his papa.
He gets to go talk to Osborne.
And Reen's just like, dude, what the
Yeah. Osborne's like, so this is the first time we met one-on-one in a while. I was like, yep, by design.
So Reen basically goes there to try and get answers. Osborne kind of gives him answers. Some. Whether or not they're true or not, that remains to be seen.
He explains that Reen has his heart. Literally.
I don't buy it.
I do buy it.
I don't buy it.
I definitely buy it.
How can you live with another heart? Are you telling me this man is a medical surgeon now?
No, but I have a theory.
He's got a robot heart.
Yes and no. I do think it's involving the mech.
He's a mech heart.
He's a mech heart. Do you want me to tell you my theory, or do you want me to leave it?
Go ahead.
Okay. So my theory is that like everybody's saying, okay, he went away and he changed. I think what happened is that his mech is very clearly evil, and everybody's like, oh, hey, you answered to that guy, huh? I think that there's some way that like he was able to give Reen his heart, but then like this mech was able to like keep him alive but also corrupt him so that he became just like a pure force of evil and like is able to use his body as a way to like do these things that he wants to do, essentially. Like, I don't know that it's actually an Osborne for real.
I maintain my theory that Reen died for real, and to Osborn was so distraught that he made a deal with the Black Workshop to get him back, and by that I mean they made a copy of Reen.
Why would they make a flawed copy with a giant scar?
Because that's where they implemented stuff from the one dude.
The one dude.
Yeah, the one dude who used to pilot Valimar. So they could give him a connection to Valimar.
Oh, Drycles.
Yeah, so he would be able to pilot Valimar at some point.
But why would they want him to pilot Valimar?
Because they have all of the other mechs.
Yeah.
Why don't they have all the mechs on their side? That way they can easily implement their plan to bring forth the Twilight stuff.
Maybe still think that like the like embodiment of the Divine Knight that he's working with is what's making him evil. Like I don't think that he is actually Osborn anymore. I think
to be fair though, we don't know that he was never just purely evil from the get-go.
That's true, we don't. But
he could have always just been planning all this just like, been all nice and I'm a good guy up to this, and then the stuff happens, and that's the one like catalyst that's like he's like, all right, this, I'm never going to like put on this facade again of being this good guy. If I need I need to get power now so I can make sure nothing bad happens to me again, and now I'm just gonna be a full-blown
it's possible. I'm sticking with my theory though.
I'm sticking with my theory.
I really don't think that like Osborn is Osborn anymore. I think it is wholly like a puppet of that Divine Knight.
He's like, oh, look at me, I'm pulling the string.
I mean, it would make
me.
So essentially he's like, yeah, things are bad, but also like, what are you gonna do about it?
And Reed's like,
so we've also seen some interspersed cutscenes with this that show Ash that he's like, oh yeah, Kurt Vander, I'm gonna go take a you want to come with? Kurt's like, no, I don't want to go piss with you. I am Kurt Vander. This is not what we do.
This is not the Vander style.
This is not the Vander style. We on our own.
And Ash is like, whatever, I'll go by myself. And then by himself, he means to sneak into the private area and basically steal a butler's uniform.
And he had a gun from the Calvardian.
Yeah, our agent.
That is basically like a non-traceable gun. Also worth mentioning that when he picked that up, Musei's like, I feel like I missed something. And Musei throughout this entire thing has been like, she's
very observant
and saying a lot of things that she's like, oh, this is like my plan B, or like this is going according to plan. So then like she knows something. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But at this point, like Ash is in his butler outfit with his little non-traceable gun, and he goes into the room where the Emperor and Osborn,
which Reen has already gone back and done his stuff.
Raging.
Yeah, he's mad. Ash is like, hello.
He like keeps covering his left eye, and
he does this constantly through the game. Yeah. He basically makes mention that like, hey, I was the third survivor, and I'm very pissed at what you guys did. And there's this voice that keeps telling me to kill the people who are responsible for it. So which one of you is responsible for it? Because I'm gonna kill you.
And Osborn's like, yeah, you could shoot me, but like aim for the head. Don't shoot for the heart. You're not gonna do anything. And then the Emperor's like, I'm pretty sure he can't actually die, so maybe don't do that. Shoot me instead. Also,
Ash's eye is like red and very corrupted.
Like, it's oozing like miasma type thing. It's weird.
And then he pops the Emperor.
Like 3 times he shoots the Emperor, and then Osborn like traps him on the ground, and like Ash loses consciousness after he shoots, and it ends up being this thing of like, oh, look, the Calvardian guns. What use this? Maybe he is an agent. Oh, maybe we should start a war. Which was what they were trying to avoid in the first place, because Eustace knew the whole time. He's like, yeah, that's what
what some people were trying to avoid. Other people were trying to make happen.
Yeah. Rufus trying to make that happen. Yus is like, dude, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about that. Like, kind of related to him, but he still sucks. Which he still thinks he's fully related to him at that point. Well, half related, but yeah. So the emperor is shot. He's bleeding out. He is in critical condition.
Ash is taken into custody immediately,
Mm-hmm.
and basically everything is gone to handbasket real quick.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we're gonna go to war to Calvard, and
they basically announce, hey, there was a Calvardian agent who shot the Emperor. It was him who did it. Now we must fight the Calvardians and everything, and all of this. So like this huge like announcement happens, and like all of the branch campus is watching this, and then like you see it's like everyone's just like, dude, what the Ash was not this kind of person. That's not how it was.
Mm-hmm.
The main heads of the campus are like talking about it, and Le Guin's like about it.
Super.
She's like, this is they won't let me. They won't tell me anything. They won't let me go see him or anything. Like this.
Which, like, Le Guin is not about people telling her no. Another thing that's worth noting is a very big difference here, and that Cedric is with Osborn and is like, yes, we have to get revenge. We have to go after them. At the same time, Oliver does a radio announcement where he's like, we have to stay strong. We have to give our best wishes for the Emperor. Like, the dichotomy between those two princes is so interesting. Because Oliver's trying to keep the peace, trying to be positive.
He's the pacifist.
And like trying to keep it together. And Cedric's like, no, f it, burn everything down. God, this sucks. I'm like, whoa, buddy, you need to calm down. Like, puberty is not doing you any favors.
So yeah, all that goes down, and then basically, they have the branch campus on lockdown, or like where their camp was. They're being guarded and everything. Reen's is like, I gotta figure out what to do, and everyone's like, we can't leave. But then like Celine shows up and like comes like, hey, what's up? We're gonna make a teleportation circle to get you out of here and be able to do stuff. And Reen's like, cool. And so he gathers his kiddos and does all that. There's also a good point as well, where like you kind of go around and talk to everyone, and then Le Guin's like, hey, you want to fight before you go off and do stuff?
Yeah, it's so, really funny.
You go off and you get ready to fight her, and then like one of like the guards shows up like, what are you guys doing? You can't do like be fighting or anything. And Le Guin's like, hey, how about you go off before I come over there and whoop your ass? And he's like, all right, I'm just gonna act like I don't see anything.
It's amazing. And so yeah, you get to fight her, which is hilarious. And then you get to warp via tree.
Then you get to meet up with everyone else.
You gotta go to the cathedral.
You go to the cathedral where you're going to get a big old info dump.
Yeah, big info dump.
So you have been asked to meet there by the behest of some folks.
Hey, did you know that Rose, the grandma, is a vampire?
She just shows her fangs like, hey.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So Sister Rosine is there, who you've been...
Thomas.
She has been helping you out, like translating Black records and everything, and she works in the Leaves Cathedral as well. So you know her, and then Thomas shows up. And he's like, hello, everyone. And like you had seen him previously and like talked about him to the kiddos. They're like, oh, okay. And then Rosine shows up.
Can I mention something about Thomas real quick?
Yes.
At one point when like you save him, he's like, oh, I was just traveling as like a traveling historian researcher. And I ran out of money. And I'm just like, buddy, that would not have lasted very long that you were a traveling historian researcher. Like, really? Come on.
I thought you were going to say the part about him running out of money was realistic.
I mean, it is. It's very realistic. God, it's hilarious, but it is very, very realistic for a historian to run out of money and then have nobody to help him out. Anyway, so we're getting more info dump. Rosine's there. Thomas is there.
So they give you a big
Grandma's there.
They give you a big history of like what all has happened in this country.
Yeah.
About like the Hexen clan, the gnomes, how they had worked together at one point, how like the Great One came to be and everything, and why that was such like a bad thing, and how they like had to work together to make sure it kind of got split apart and everything. The creatures of the fire at Earth and all that sort of stuff. So it's just this big old info dump of just like all this stuff that has happened in this history and everything, and why things are happening the way they are now. Um, Vita shows up.
She does.
She's like, "Hello, everyone," and then Thomas is like, "Oh, by the way, let me introduce you to our newest member of the church." And Gaius is like, "Hello, everyone."
So that's what Gaius has been up to for 6 months, is that he was hanging out with some dude from the church who was also the traveling priest that like you were following in the in the second game. That there was this weird quest where like there was a priest who just kept going different places. They're like, how is he doing this? But eventually Gaius is like protected by him when
they had like worked together, I think, at one point as well, and like he was in Nord. And like just like hanging out there, and that's where Gaius met up with him again. And then, like you said, like he saved Gaius, and he was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm kind of this member of this church thing. Here's my powers. You're gonna have to kind of figure out and do this and go train and stuff." So he went and trained with like Thomas and all those other folks for like 6 months, and that was why he couldn't be gotten a hold of or anything. So he's a member of the church now.
Yeah, he's like a church warrior with superpowers.
Like, what is going on? And
like
then Vita shows up and is like, "Hello, we've been working together a little bit."
Yeah, it's a lot of converging lines here. I was like, all right, Gaius is part of the church now, I guess. He has like this weird like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like this weird like symbol that keeps popping up like in light around him. But you know.
But like it's his church symbol thing.
Yeah, you do you, Gaius.
Elisa also mentions that Sharon's gone.
Yes, she's like, yeah, Sharon left the hotel earlier, and that's kind of weird, but like, I guess she'll be back later. She won't be back later.
While they're having all this huge info dump, a bunch of stuff happens outside that's real bad because Ouroboros has completed their plan. They've turned the Emperor's house into a giant egg, and now all sorts of like bad stuff is happening on the streets of Heimdall. Our enemies are showing up and everything, and everyone runs out. Is like, "Oh, this is real bad."
Yeah, there's just like magic knights and cryptids and everything just everywhere.
So a bunch of other folks show up to help. Like Patrick shows up to help guard the girls' school. Like a real
and
good
like comes
dude.
in clutch, like saving Elisa and Alphen.
And Reen's like, "Oh my god, Patrick, you're a good dude. You've went up like one stock in my book."
Not good enough for my sister, but you're good.
Vita stays behind and basically is like, "I will put a barrier over the school so like nothing bad will happen to them."
And then she gets a look from Muse.
They give each other a look. So this is Vita's essentially her big baby face turn, where she's now kind of like, not really. I mean, she's been on the outs of Ouroboros, but like now she's kind of actively working against them. But also she's kind of done some other stuff as well, which we'll get to. But yeah, you basically have to go fight your way through some stuff and then get to the egg where everyone else is. But you see a bunch of other people fighting in the streets, like Elliot's dad and some other folks are fighting through some stuff.
Nightheart is there.
There's a shot that happens where you go back to the camp and Le Guin's like, "I have some personal business I need to attend to. I'm going to go take my mech and go fight some stuff." And everyone's like, I guess, okay.
Yep.
Sure. And she's like, "All right, bye, everyone."
Bye.
The Black Whirlwind dude shows up with some folks, and he has his own new army now that like is not affiliated with anyone else, and that's interesting.
There was also a scene in Heimdall that we have not mentioned that at one point the Courageous lands and they're talking with everybody. They're talking with Schmidt, they're talking with Elisa, and they're like, all right, we got a GTFO at this point, and you see like technicians working on the Courageous, and at one point like one of them hesitates, and then like the disguise flickers and it's George. And I was like, that's suspect. But then I forgot about it because all this other stuff went down. So bad right now. Like real bad. Jingo is like shooting things from the sky.
Yeah, the Black Market little girl is like shooting things with her mom, and then like this delivery girl that you helped one time is also like, helping them out, shooting stuff. It's real good.
It's real good.
So yeah, like the class 7s show up to where the final dungeon is, and everyone's out there. Everyone's
like
here.
It's Smash Brothers.
It's the Iron Bloods, it's Ouroboros, it's the Jaegers, it's all the bad guys essentially.
It's everybody, and now we got to go in this egg.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a barrier up on it, so you're not getting there." And then Thomas and Rosine show up and are like, "Yeah, off. We're gonna make a hole in it, and we're gonna throw everyone through it and to get through."
Which, like, cool as heck that Thomas is like, all right, cool, I got this ability. Let's do this. It's like, dude, cool, I guess.
And then basically all of the branch campus folks show up because also the main campus folks are fighting against them.
Yeah.
Because they're like all sided with the prince because they're.
Yeah, no kidding.
So it's like the branch campus, all your other allies that have showed up throughout here
against everybody
against
else.
Everyone else. Toa finds George and is like, "Where is Angelica? You." He's like, "Angelica's dead. I killed her." But there's a brief moment in there where like Toa's basically like, "You were never like this. What has happened to you? We were all friends." And like he hesitates for a split second before he's like, "Angelica's dead. Off."
Yeah.
So interesting little thing there.
Now he's like Copper like,
Georg.
So that's the thing. Yeah. But yeah, so everybody's fighting. And then our main squad like gets into the egg.
And then you have to fight through a bunch of monsters and stuff, but you have basically checkpoints where it's like you have to fight specific people. So like your first checkpoint is you fight against McBurn and the Steel Maiden, which is you have to fight with Laura, excuse me, and some other folks. I forget who else is there.
I think is Gaius on this
one? I don't remember. I can look here.
Okay.
Is Laura, Emma, and Gaius who fight McBurn and
because Emma has to take the flames down on McBurn.
Yes. So you fight them and do everything, then eventually there's a point where you have to run past them. And you beat
as in the rest of the crew.
You and as the rest of the other, they stay back and fight still. Then you fight your second group, which is Shirley, Randy Orlando's cousin, not McBurn's cousin, even though they look similar. Sharon.
Yep. Who has said that she's no longer Sharon. She is back to Kruger, the Severing Chains.
She's back Ouroboros because her contract has ended.
Her contract was that if he ever appeared again.
Oh, by the way, yeah. They unveil who the leader of the Black Workshop is.
Yep.
And it's Elisa's dad.
Yeah.
Who's not dead.
Not dead. And she freaks out. I mean, obviously Elisa has every right to freak out, but what is said is that Irina knew that he was alive. And she had told Sharon that like if the day comes when he comes back, then you are free from your contract and, do what you got to do. And so once she realized that he was alive and went back, like she's dropping Sharon. She is no longer part of the Reinford family. She is
also the weird professor dude kind of knew. Like he had like an inkling that he was still alive.
Yeah.
But also you fight Siegfried and Rutger, the Jaeger King in this. So you have to fight. You have Elisa who gets her own little cool mech.
She gets a mech, and she was like, "I was going to show you this. I was keeping it under wraps, but this is the way I got to show you now." Sad.
It's a thing that like you help Tita kind of like beta test in one of the school dungeons. So you have Elisa, Fee, and Sarah who fight together in this one, and then eventually they do a thing, and then you get to run past with with the rest of your group. Your final quote unquote
is the Iron Bloods.
So you have Eustace, Machias, and Elliot, and you fight against Milliam, Claire, Lecter, and Rufus. Rufus also drops that he's not related to Eustace.
Yeah, he's like, oh, by the way, my dad is your uncle and some other lady. I'm not actually related to your dad at all, but he rejected you because you had commoner blood and I didn't. How about that, huh?
And then Eustace is like, I'm going to beat your ass.
Yeah, basically he's like, dude, you suck. I need to get rid of you. Milliam's like, hey, sorry guys, like I just gotta do this, and which is weird because in the class 7 meeting, she's like, yeah, you guys are my friends, and class 7 always comes first.
I will never do anything that will like put you guys in danger, essentially.
Yeah. So that was a
Whoops.
weird choice. And like Claire feels bad about it, and
Lecter's Lecter.
Lecter's Lecter, but Lecter does things eventually that are very, very interesting. So you get through this, and then Milliam's like, all right, I'm just gonna chill here, guys. Goodbye.
And then Eustace and Rufus are just gonna fight each other.
Yeah, they just fight.
Yeah.
And then you get to the bottom.
You get to the bottom, you have to fight the Holy Beast with your class 7 kiddos.
The nameless one.
The nameless one. Then you have to use your mechs to fight it. Although also down there is Osborne, Elisa's dad, Prince, and Altina, who they have captured.
Mm-hmm. And Prince has the mech that
the
he
red
has.
mech, yeah.
Yeah. And so Elisa's dad is the leader of the Black Workshop, and he's just like, all right, cool guys, it's that professor that you've been seeing throughout the whole game.
I told you he was suspicious.
I was trying to throw you off.
I was like, I'm not buying this. He kept showing up way too conveniently. Like, there's no way he's not going to be someone.
Yeah, because he showed up at the boathouse, he showed up at the island, and then he showed up again in Heimdall in the Imperial Museum.
It's too convenient.
And I'm like, huh, interesting. But
and he also unveils their plan to take Altina, kill her, turn her into a sword that will murder that beast,
and enact the
phantasmal Blaze plan, which is also like called something about Twilight, not the movies or the books.
Basically,
the Great Twilight Plan.
Yeah,
it's their idea to resurrect the Great One, The Rock,
yes.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh my God.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
So yeah, things are going kind of bad here. Like you get through it, but Reen as Valimar is like in a lock battle with this. Like the monster has his sword
and chomps it.
And they're like, we told you nothing could defeat it besides, a sword from the thing that's like completely in tune with the artificial being, and
has to be the perfect being, and Altina is the perfect being, or the perfect recreation or whatever. And
so
then, like,
Cedric starts choking her to death,
and then she's able
like,
to
nope.
She's able to summon her buddy, and he's like, get the off.
And then she just like flies off and is trying to shield it. Everybody's like, that shield's not gonna hold, don't do that.
And she's basically like, I'll sacrifice myself, I'll do it.
Yeah,
that's what it takes. And then Milliam runs down and is like, no, I'm just kidding, you're not doing this, I'm gonna do it.
And she's like,
why?
It's fine.
So yeah, Milliam takes a shot and turns into a giant sword.
And
Reen freaks the out. Like, he immediately turns into his ogre mode. Valimar transforms.
Yeah, Valimar goes ogre too, which is wild. Like his form looks cool when he goes ogre.
He takes that sword and just starts chopping up the beast.
Yeah.
It is, oh boy.
Rough. Was the whole point of the whole thing was that they wanted to kill the beast with the sword. One thing that is also happening is that Jubilee is outside and she's like, what is happening?
Is this really what we were trying to fight for?
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing.
Which she has been questioning things throughout this game. So she is basically number one with a bullet in terms of like who we think is going to be switching sides. Yeah.
Also at one point, Osborne and Elisa's dad are like, you know what? Things are kind of weird outside. The Courageous is out there with Toval and Olivert and Laura's dad. And everybody's really excited. Like, all the good dudes are like, yes, we have backup. So he's like, should we do it? And the prince and Osborne are like, yep, do it. He presses a button. Boop. And it explodes.
It blows up.
George had planted bombs on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's really sad because you have like Toval and Oliver that are basically like, saying their goodbyes to like their loved one through like just words of like I messed up, and um Laura's dad like takes his hat off, and I mean it just blows up.
Mm-hmm.
And Cedric, that little down there, is like, bye, brother.
What a piece of
I know. Also, at this point, we get a cut to Le Guin and Vita, because Vita has abandoned.
Well, before that, you get a shot of Le Guin with the Black Whirlwind. They're fighting stuff. Some of their troops show up, and they are holding Ash. And they're like, all right, we got to get out of here. Mm-hmm. So she has teamed up with like the army and stuff, but then like they go to the airport where they're going on to like one of the big airships. She meets up with Vita, and they mention of like, oh, everything seems to be going according to her plan.
Using the name of Muse when she is her actual name.
So we know that somehow Muse, Le Guin, and Vita are teamed up in some fashion. Mm-hmm. Whether or not that's good or bad, we are not that sure of. I would say it's probably good.
And Muse has apparently an ability to like figure out what's going on very, very well. Mm-hmm. And another thing that's significant about this conversation is they're like, okay, well, now that the prince is gone, like she's the only card in the like at play. And it's like, what does that mean? That like they're comparing her to Oliver? Like,
I don't think if they were villains, they would compare her to Oliver.
True, I don't think so either.
And I think with like the Gwen's actions in this game so far, like I don't think it would be weird for her to go from villain to good guy back to villain.
Yeah, and I think that she genuinely like extracted Ash because she like that's her student.
Because she was
yeah.
Like, you don't take my student and then tell me, hey, off. Like, no, you. We're going to go get him back. Like, she has been like a driving force for this branch campus of like, it's almost like the branch campus is like this very punk rock attitude compared to the main campus. And she is the driving force behind that.
Yeah.
So like, I don't see her as like going or turning back villain in a way. So like, I feel like this is some like, they're kind of be like an offshoot. Maybe not like super like, hey, we're going to be working side by side with Reen and everyone immediately. Mm-hmm. Maybe doing their own thing, but like they are interesting groups right now.
I'm just very interested how Muse works into all that.
Same.
So that's happening. And we've discussed like, you know, are they actually dead? Because like that's an explosion and the ship literally falls to pieces. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how you'd survive that.
What if it was a projection?
So yeah, Reen's still down there just chopping this thing to bits.
You get some like cuts to like all of the people that are still in the tower and just like
telling him to stop.
And then like the other sides are just like looking at it and like, I don't know about this. Lecter is the most interesting one because he is kind of that he's like, I don't like that Milliam and Altina have been used like this. Like, this is kind of like, what the is going on?
They're all kind of like they're not very happy with the courageous bit. They're like, you know, they didn't give them any warning. They just blew them up out of the sky. Like, that's not how you do it. But Lecter is very upset about how Milliam and Altina are treated. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting, and I'd like to see where that goes.
I feel like Lecter is kind of the person who might be the one who's like, I'm going to go where the power lies.
Yeah.
And if wherever that goes, I will put my allegiances. So, you know, he's going to look out for himself first.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, it was a very interesting little moment.
And we learned that his, like, iron blood power is that, like, he calls it his gut feelings. Mm-hmm. But he's able to just, like, figure out what he needs to do. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if that's going to come into play here.
Yeah. But also, while all this is happening and Marina has basically murdered this beast and is about to stomp towards Osborn and Elisa's dad, Crow gets his memories back.
Yep, and he's like,
why did I have to do this now? He drops his mask and just jumps down into the pit, and everyone's like, whoa, what are you doing?
And summons his Divine Knight.
Uh-huh. Which, like, so the Jaeger King and the Steel Maiden are like, all right, I guess we're going too.
Yep.
They summon their mechs. Prince gets into his mech. So we have 5 mechs.
Yeah, Osborne's is behind him. He's
Osborne
not
gets
it.
his, so that's 6. And there is 7 mechs in total, 7 Divine Knights.
And Rufus implies that he knows who has the
Mhm.
last one.
He's like, well, I wonder where the 7th one could be. Which I don't think it implies that he has it.
He knows who has it.
He knows who has it. I don't think he's the owner of it.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea who would have the 7th one.
Because we were discussing this, and I feel like if it's another villain who has it, I feel like that's too much
The
of a
cards
power
are-
imbalance.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously, from stuff we know, Crow's going to turn babyface again.
Yeah.
So that would put 2 on 5 if it's another villain. So I don't think it's... I don't know. But also, like, you never know. Like, Jaeger King could turn. Steel Maiden
Jaeger
can
King
turn.
might turn.
So... But I think it's going to be someone that's surprising.
Yeah.
And you never know. Rufus could also be, like, some who's just, like, plotting behind the scenes against Osborn for whatever reason. He's the type of person who would do that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'd like to see like who has that 7th one, but he implies he knows.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Reen has killed this thing. He's enacted the Twilight, the Great Twilight, and everybody is like
It's
basically
engulfed the entire country in darkness. There is like weird energy coming out from the ground and everything, and causing people to kind of be more angry and stuff. So bad stuff. Everyone gets down there with their knights while Reen is closing in, and Crow restrains him. Is like, "Hey, buddy, no, let's not do this. Let's not do this." Osborne gets into his mech.
It's also worth mentioning that Reen is like not only in his ogre form, but he's in a trance. Like he can't speak and he just grunts. That's all he does right now.
And he's kind of like phasing out of it a bit.
Yeah. And then this happens.
And then Osborne gets into his mech and like grabs Valimar and is like, "Oh, we're gonna get you now, Reen." Cut to black, credits.
Yep. That's how it ends.
It's real good. I was so mad.
I was like, holy shit, that's a cliffhanger.
I was like, I finished this game at 4 a.m.
Yep.
And texted you. I was like, off. This. They can't end it there.
You knew though.
I knew something was gonna happen. I thought it was actually they were gonna do it earlier, because there was like it felt like it was building up to that a little bit earlier. I was like, they better not do this, because they did it at the end of chapter 4 as well. It was a big cut to black. I was like, oh, they better not do it, because I knew your texts about this. As you finished the game, you were basically had the same reaction, so I knew something was gonna happen.
Yep.
And then they did it.
Yep.
It's
they
real
ended
good.
it right with Osborne grabbing Valamar's head and it's like, all right, we got you, Reen.
It's such a great direction of just being like, all right, that's it. That's all you see.
I am so ready for 4 now, and I the wait's gonna be so hard. And like the fact that I replayed it immediately, like I caught so many hints towards what was happening. In terms of like Elisa's dad and like the big plan and all that jazz. Like there are subtle hints throughout that I was like, holy it was pointing towards this the whole time. It's wild. What a good game. Man,
it's really good. So our basic kind of like theory of what we're going to expect going into the 4, which is we've seen kind of from the opening, is that it seems like it's going to be like new Class 7 coming together and trying to find a way to bring Reen back from whatever, because like something happens to him, obviously, from the events of this, and then what happens in 4, obviously. But so I think that's going to be kind of like the big kind of sticking point at the beginning.
Yeah, he's got a mask in the opening, and then like at one point the mask like shatters off. But we're thinking that like they're gonna have to go on a rescue mission.
And also like his hair's all in ogre form now permanently.
Yeah, he's permanently ogre form now.
It's gonna be very interesting. Briefly, because we've gone very long.
Very, very long.
Let's talk about people who we think are gonna turn.
Duvally,
obviously.
I'm banking on Rutger.
I could see that, because he kind of seems like the kind of person who's like not really.
He's not dedicated to.
He's not dedicated to them, and he's not going to do anything to put Fee in danger.
Right. I see him turning.
Can I give you my one wild card turn? McBurn.
I don't see that one.
McBurn's gonna turn because he's gonna see that Reen gives him the ultimate fight and help him out because he's Goku.
But I don't think he would want to help him out. I think he would just want to fight him.
But what if he sees like Reen's fight? He has a good fight with Reen, and then's like, all right, I'll help you fight Osborn.
I think we're more likely to see Lecter.
I think Lecter could, but like, give me my McBurn good guy turn.
I'm also 90% sure Claire
is going to turn bad.
No, is going to like stop with the Iron Blood helping out.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
Osborn, because she like when Reen was running past her after the battle, she like reached out for him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's obviously had issues with this whole thing and has had issues with the whole thing since 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that she's going to continue on with Osborn's plan.
I think we're going to see the Iron Bloods kind of crumble.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, I think we're going to see Claire turn, Lecter turn. Rufus is going to betray Osborn.
I mean, Rufus is like...
And going to try and do what he wants to do.
He's a power-hungry dude, and like he's going to do whatever it takes to get what he wants.
Like, I think the only one that's going to like stick by Osborn is probably Prince, because he's just young and naive and a...
Yeah, I think so too.
So...
Like, I think fully Prince is pretty evil now. Not Prince like the musician, because he was rad, but like the evil little Prince, who like literally every time he'd show up, I was just like, "You're."
So it's a lot of like text anytime he showed up, like, "Boo,
you suck." So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I think
Campanella is firmly entrenched in Ouroboros. He's not changing.
Yeah, no, like he was bummed about the whole courageous thing, but he's not changing.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, I guess that's just the thing that happens. Oh well."
I don't know about Steel Maiden.
Yeah.
And then we know that Vita's kind of like, riding the fence on it.
Does Sharon turn back?
I think that Sharon does, because when she sees that Elisa's really upset about her dad, she calls her my lady again.
Mm-hmm.
And like when she was going through the whole speech of like, I'm no longer part of the Rhineford family. I'm not Sharon. And then like when she sees how upset she is, she calls her my lady. And I think that that's something that's significant. And also, I don't know if you noticed it, but like her text box like would move between like Sharon and like Severing Chains.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But we guarantee Duvally.
Yeah, I think Duvally is just like a
lock.
A lock.
Which would be interesting. I'm interested to see what Duvally would look like as like an ally.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because she's so like tsundere towards Reen.
Mm-hmm. That's what Reen needs, another one.
Right? Just another one.
But that is the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. A wild game, a long game, as evident by this podcast length.
For the record, since I did not mention at the beginning, my current playtime...
Yeah, you had to listen to 3 hours of this podcast to hear this.
...is 180 hours.
Which you finished the game with like over 100, the initial playthrough.
Yeah. And I'm sure that I will play it again before 4 comes out. I'm sure I will.
There you go.
God, it's a good game.
It's a really good game. But we're going to wrap this up because this is a longest podcast we've ever done.
And it's late.
And it's very late. So if you'd like more from us, go to seasonalcheckup.com or scc.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Seasonal Checkup and Jared Now Watch. You can go find all of our Game of the Year stuff we wrote up and everything.
Woo!
And other of the year stuff. You can follow AnnLadium at AnnLadium.com. She's got columns and reviews and stuff like that.
Yep.
Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckups, where we do Twitter. And you can buy us a slice of pizza at patreon.com/SACOVA. It's where you could have, if you were a Patreon or patron, when this episode was initially recorded, you could have got it early.
Da-ba-bum.
Because we recorded it early. So there you go. Next week, we'll continue with our backlog of 2018 games that we haven't talked about. So we're going to talk about
2018, 2019.
2019, excuse me. I'm well behind my years. Our 2019 backlog that we're catching up on. So we're going to talk about The Outer Worlds and episode 5 of Life is Strange 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see you then. It probably won't be as long of a podcast.
It won't be as long.